All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting, City of Utica, April 19th, 2023. Before we start with the Complete Streets trial, what I want to do is I want to turn over the floor to Heather Mowat, our Budget Director. She wants to talk about 4 items that are in our packet tonight for our next meeting. It's ordinance 10, 11, 12, and 13, E&A transfers. So Heather, I'll give you the floor.
Okay, I'll be brief. Number 10 has to do with the city clerk transfer. It has to do with, we had some changes. We had a retirement, and then we brought somebody back, and that became wages. So it's simply going from wages to salaries. We had a retirement. Pretty straightforward. Number 11. Number 11 has to do with city
Councilman
hall.
DeBrango, quick question.
Yeah.
You're going over stuff for pre-meeting conference?
Yeah, she wanted to address us.
I'm leaving.
She has to leave.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
leaving.
that it's a,
She has to leave, that's why.
okay, for everyone in the room.
As you may recall.
This way, if we had questions, we can get them out of the way right now.
Yeah. As you may recall, George Sabo, who is our facilities fellow, retired. We did bring him back part-time. We moved $15,000 up to 15 at E&A, I believe. So this is just cleaning up that account because he did work more hours than that. Okay. Number 13 has to do with insurances. Because our fleet is so young, we have a very young vehicle fleet. We've been updating our cars. Our insurance, yeah, our insurance has gone up, and so that was more than what was budgeted. And then the last one has to do with codes. As you may recall, we hired an electrical inspector at the beginning of the year, and we knew that we'd be having to come down here. I didn't want to move his complete salary because I knew there'd be some openings, and so I'm waiting to the end of the year.
All right, just salary. Found somebody?
Yeah, last year we did.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
you're welcome. I'm all set. Thanks, Councilman.
All right, any questions for Heather? Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Heather.
Heather, thanks for coming.
Oh.
Good day.
All right, next on the agenda. Okay, Kelsey. Ann? All right. They're going to be next up, and they're going to be speaking about the Complete Streets trial on Genesee Street. So I'm going to turn the floor over to these 2 young ladies.
Can you guys see if I stand here? Can't
Yeah,
see.
no, we're fine.
You're good? Okay. All right, you're good. So, Shannon and I, we actually worked on the traffic impact study when it came to the hospital study. So, we decided to work with the city on this because we had a lot of knowledge in the area, all the modeling files. We knew the trips that the hospital was going to generate. So we wanted to look at this Genesee Street trial from a very technical standpoint, considering the hospital fully built and operational. So just really quick, this is kind of a high-level presentation. I'm sure you all got into the weeds in our very technical report, and so I wanted to give you more of a high-level overview about that report. So my name is Kelsey Wessel. I am a PE and a PTOE. We really like acronyms as engineers, so I'm a professional engineer, and I'm a professional traffic operations engineer. I work for CNS, and Shannon does too, and she's on her way to a PE, and she goes on all my traffic engineering endeavors with me. So she worked on this project with me, and she just, to give you a little overview about Complete Streets, as we move in this direction, do you want to tell them a little about it?
Complete Streets is a policy just used to improve safety and support mobility for all people to use on the roadway. This through for everyone, including pedestrians and bikes and motorists. Complete Streets are important for equity for everybody, and it's hard to measure the benefits of Complete Streets, just like equity for everyone to feel
Yeah, so everyone can use their preferred mode. So maybe everyone doesn't have access to a vehicle, so they can have safe conditions to walk or bike. It also improves safety for vehicles also because it adds this element to the road where it reduces the amount of conflict points in the road, and it also creates a traffic calming event or traffic calming effect. So vehicles will slow down, which is safer for all modes of transportation. So just to get a little bit into the numbers, because we love numbers, the traffic engineers, really all of the criteria out there says you could look at a road diet, and by road diet I mean one lane in each direction with a center turn lane, so two-way left turn lane at intersections. When you have annual daily traffic of 10,000 to 15,000 vehicles per day. So what does that mean on Genesee Street? So we looked at a little bit of the historical data on Genesee Street, and in 2010, there were 8,820 vehicles per day on Genesee Street. In 2017, there was an uptick, which is not typical of upstate New York, so I was pleasantly surprised by that. It was 9,407 vehicles per day. We did take counts in February, which can be a low month, so we inflated those counts for the season, and that brought us up to 7,732 vehicles per day. So I would say that it's pretty, not a lot of growth, it's kind of stagnant. So we're kind of, as you see that threshold of 10,000 to 15 vehicles per day, or 1,000 vehicles per day, we're really under that bottom threshold of looking at if this would work just on vehicles per day standpoint. So, this didn't work out as well on the screen, but when we looked at the Mohawk Valley TIS study, there were, I'm not sure what happened here, but I can let you know the predominant collision style was rear ends and right turns. And one of the more counties that's really into road diets is Monroe County, and they have a guidance on multi-lane conversions, they call it. And some of the benefits for safety improvements is they recognize that there's a reduction of rear end and left turn crashes because you're installing that left turn lane. And there's also a reduction of right angle crashes because you have better visibility of drivers. Better visibility, you're only looking at one lane of oncoming traffic versus 2 lanes of oncoming traffic when you're trying to turn. So we noticed when we did the Mohawk Valley study and we did that safety analysis, you can see there's little clusters of those types of collisions along Genesee Street. And here I guess it was doubled on my screen, so sorry about that. We also looked at a little bit of framework. I like to do a lot of research in the area, what framework has been implemented or what are the goals of the area. In the City of Utica Master Plan, which was done about a decade ago, they noted they wanted to provide safe, comfortable, and efficient multimodal connectivity. And the implementation strategy specifically listed on there was to rejuvenate Genesee Street and Oriskany Street as corridor boulevards. And we already did that on Oriskany Street, and it looks amazing, and it seems to be working great. So now it's time to work that multimodal connectivity into Genesee Street, which is a direct connector to Oriskany Street. This was also outlined, I don't know if you guys know this exists, in the Mohawk Valley Regional Sustainability Plan. For the area, they want to improve trails and supporting infrastructure for walking, bicycling, and they take it even further to horseback riding, snowmobiles for connections and trails. I know that goes into trails, but really what this area and most areas are looking to do is to reduce the focus on single vehicle occupancy and provide other alternatives for people. And they have those targets in the Mohawk Valley region that they're really trying to encourage people to use different modes of transportation. And this is just a little map to show, here's Genesee Street, and it would be a direct connector to that Oriskany Boulevard and the connection there for bicyclists. So I just want to give you a little context for some successful road diets that were in Syracuse. So in downtown Syracuse, this is west Onondaga Street. It had 2 lanes in each direction, and it was really over that ADT threshold of 15,000. As you can see, it was 15,125 vehicles per day. And it actually worked out great. There's no congestion. And that left turn lane really provides, it keeps capacity open because you're moving turning vehicles out of the through lanes of traffic. So, bicycle lanes? Yes, it has bicycle lanes as well. Yep. So here's kind of a picture of that going into downtown. You can see there's a parking lane on the far right side, has that bicycle lane Someone's making a right at that intersection, so that's why you see that. And then, the one through lane in each direction and the two-way left turn lane.
Okay. Are we available? Are you available for questions?
Yeah,
Okay. Is there an area where they do deliveries on this roadway in Syracuse, in the center lane?
deliveries in the center lane?
Yeah, they're supposed to park in the center lane and then deliver products to the businesses either left or right. Is there
It's on the
any
longer
delivery
blocks, there's like
lanes
3 sections.
Here on this Onondaga,
Oh, they do deliveries, but not in the center turn lane.
not in the center lane?
Yeah.
Where do they deliver?
Well, they're pretty available to, you could use the curb lane, the park side lane, or they can, they do have driveways, they deliver up, they can go up to the businesses here.
So when you say driveways, I'm talking like large soda trucks, large other trucks, they wouldn't go in a driveway. So where would they deliver?
At the curbside,
Curbside?
parking
Is
lane,
it-
yes.
So what if there's cars parked there?
They usually have restricted parking for deliveries.
So there's a restricted area,
Yes,
deliveries only, no parking?
yes, yeah.
But isn't the density of development there different than the density of development
It gets similar.
along Genesee Street in downtown?
Yeah, it gets similar as you push for, as you can see forward, you can see the density is, it gets right into the city. But, yeah, so in this spot, it's less dense.
Councilman DeBrey, can I ask a question? Not to them. Can we, potentially see the presentation and take notes? I feel like if we start,
Okay.
rambling off a lot of questions, that we may derail the overall
Well,
context.
it is my meeting. so-
No, I'm asking, so, what would you
I
like to
think we
do?
could ask questions.
All
If you
right.
have a question, it's on your mind, you could ask the question.
So can I ask you this question then, because I have it on my mind? What is you want all this to be talking bikes, everything else going. What is the percentage of vehicles versus everything else? Do you have that?
I don't have that
So
statistic.
would you say, in your estimation, that it's probably 95% cars compared to anything else?
I don't know if she needs a clarification, if we're referring to Utica or for Syracuse.
Well, in like our area here, that's what I'm concerned about. So, and I also noticed that report that we had was 186 pages, correct?
A lot of it was backup
Yes.
data.
And this survey that you guys did on this, was it done on one day in the middle of February? Or did I read that wrong? Looks like it
What
was
do you mean
done
by
Feb-
survey?
It looks like the data that you guys got was done on February 21st.
Oh, we didn't use that in our analysis. We just used it to make sure there wasn't any changes in trips or diversions in the area. So we had a lot of historical data, and we actually used the traffic data from the TIS that we did for the hospital. So all of our analysis that we did assumed the hospital was fully built, fully operational with all those trips. So our existing analysis actually is probably a little conservative.
Did you know what the weather was on February 21st? Did you know it was a snowstorm?
I did. So we took counts for 4 days. We pulled the counts prior to the snowstorm. So I think we have Tuesday, Wednesday. The snowstorm hit Thursday. We didn't use any of that information.
So I called Kelsey and told him to pull the.
Yeah,
things
and
off
they got hit by
street,
the
'cause
plows,
they could
but
put a
you
plow
know,
in.
yeah. So,
I have another question. Anybody else?
so
On this here, now, I assume this is the bike lane,
yes.
and these are parking spots, because there's
Yes.
not marked, you know.
Yeah, that's preference. Some places do
And
that.
this
some
side
don't.
is, what's this here?
Bike lane.
Bike lane?
Yes.
So there's parking just on one side of the street?
Yes. Yep.
All right, thanks.
Mhm. Okay. We had one other one in Syracuse also. This was well above the threshold. When we modeled it, it showed a lot of traffic congestion, but once it implemented, that congestion didn't appear. So it actually worked out really well for the community, provided that multimodal connection, and everything operationally is working out. So the point is, sometimes the model is conservative. And that's an example of that one here. So, we just did, we looked at the striping layout on Genesee Street. I know there was a trial with that implemented, but we looked at putting that from, all the way from, Oriskany down to, what was the last one? Yes, yep. And with the two-way left turn lane, which turned into left turn lanes at intersections to pull out those left-turning vehicles. And so we also ran, in our simulation, I wanted to look at the travel times. So say you go from Eagle to Oriskany eastbound and vice versa westbound, what is the expected existing time for you to travel that distance? And if we implemented the road diet, what is your anticipated time? And as you can see, like, things only change by maybe 15 to 20 seconds in each direction for each peak. So it really doesn't add a lot to the driver, for the benefit for the rest of the community to add those multimodal accommodations.
Why
So-
change? Well, could you go back to the slide?
Can we finish the
You
presentation?
see, this is laying down the street, pretty simple. So if I'm driving this way and I want to take a left-hand turn, and look, I believe the light is going to be here. I have to drive through the light and then come all the way over here to take that left-hand turn. You know what I'm saying? Normally you drive underneath the light, you take your turn, or just before the light. So I think it's confusing for an older driver, such as myself. Okay, as you're going here, and you have to take a left-hand turn, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. You're the 5th lane over to take that left-hand turn. I found myself going into that turning lane. I'm just
Yeah. Well, I think,
my own experience, and I'm sure people have experienced that as well.
well, I think with any change to something we're used to driving every day, there's a little bit of a period where we have to adjust. And I think once you adjust to that, like roundabouts, typically when we put in roundabouts, there's a lot of complaints early on, and then people realize how efficient they are, they get used to it, and usually people turn out to really like them. So I think there's a trial period when it comes to any type of change on a street.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions? I mean, I just kept it short and high level,
Is
so.
this the end of the, I was
Yeah.
saving my questions till the end.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm all done, so.
okay, I have a question.
Yes.
So when you talk about, like, you slightly increase the travel time, part of my understanding of how Complete Streets works, or at least in this instance, is that there's something really counterintuitive to most of us who aren't experts, like you are. When we think if you narrow the road, it's going to slow me down. And in fact, that's like the intuition that we have. That's like our quote unquote common sense judgment. But that in fact, the evidence shows that when people do less lane changing and less getting stuck behind the left-hand turner and less weaving back and forth. So what happens, or what would happen on Genesee Street, nobody wants to travel in the right-hand lane. This is prior to the trial, because it's 9 feet wide and you're gonna clip someone's open door when they park. So people prefer to travel in the left, but then you get stuck behind the left turn laner and then you move back to the right. So that there's a lot, but then once you get past that left hand, once you get through that intersection, back over to the left, so that there's a lot of actually moving back and forth, so that even while intuition would tell us, geez, if you narrow the road, you're gonna slow me down, in fact, the traffic flows more smoothly with less lane changing, and so in fact it's more efficient to travel on a road dieted road than it would be on a road with more options aren't actually better. You travel less efficiently, less smoothly when you have too many options and you're moving back and forth. Is that a good layperson's?
Yeah, and I'll say, like, to add on that, so I'm not even gonna get into the weeds of different types of modeling, but what I used was very high level. It assumed that if car A is going from here to here, it's going to stay in its lane and it's going to do that. I didn't get into modeling. You can model driver behavior very specific to an area, and it's very time intensive.
Right.
So we did not do that. So yes, it is making the assumption when it showed that slight increase in travel times, that you are going to stay in your lane and you're going to get where you're going and you're not going to do that weaving.
Right.
We also like it as a point you brought up because it does reduce collisions a lot because there's not that weaving and there's less conflict points.
Right.
So it is safer for motorists also.
The other question I want to ask, and this happened to me just yesterday, where I parked in front of the library on Genesee Street, on the same side as the library, so that's outside of the trial. So before I got out of my car, I carefully looked in my side view mirror to make sure I wasn't going to die when I got out of my car. So I waited until I wouldn't get hit. I got out, I closed the door, I stood there next to my car and waited for a car to whiz by me so that I could open the back door and get out my bag, right? So for me, as somebody who parks downtown relatively often, I find the biggest reduction in what you would call a conflict point is the conflict point between a human being who's just parked their car on the side of the road and the actual traffic. I'm opening my car door into a lane where there might be a bicycle, but there'll never be a car that's traveling 40 miles an hour. It just seems so much safer to park my car on Genesee Street with the new arrangement. It just feels much safer as somebody who parks on Genesee Street several times a week. So I just want to sort of add that to that potential. You were talking about conflict points between cars.
Yeah.
But of course, what we also want to worry about is conflict points between pedestrians and cars.
Yes, and when pedestrians cross the road, they're going against one lane in each direction versus 2 lanes in each direction. So it applies really to all modes of transportation. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a few questions, actually. First, let me state that even prior to the road diet trial, where there's 2 driving lanes in the center turn lane, et cetera, myself and other people were also looking at the 4 lanes to see if the 4 lanes could be used differently and reconfigured,
Yeah.
so they weren't just all straightaway lanes, right?
Mhm.
At the time, the 4 lanes as configured didn't have any type of, this is, at this point, a turn lane on both sides, except, there was no organization, it was just 4 lanes.
Yeah.
As part of this study, did you do any comparison to a road diet of as configured the way the trial happened versus a reconfigured 4-lane configuration? We don't need to get into it. Was there any configuration that this was compared to?
We compared to the prior situation where it was just 2 lanes in each direction.
Okay, so it was just as is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
My next question is, did you do any specific study to parallel parking? And the reason I ask this is I both, in the summer, ride my bike to work sometimes. I live in South Utica, work in the 258, right down here, right? But then I obviously drive all the time. Parallel parking with the single lane was not only an issue from my vantage point, but many other people. And as I visited multiple businesses on Genesee Street, not only the people visiting the businesses, but the business owners themselves were very concerned with parallel parking, because myself and others are experiencing having to parallel park in a situation where there's only 1 lane going straight.
Mhm.
So did you do anything to work out any issues with the parallel parking, especially since that was one of the issues that was submitted during the social survey, monkey survey?
Yeah, we didn't. When we do the model, we say that there's a parking lane there. So it takes into account, some of that as a factor, but we didn't specifically ourselves look at parallel parking and parking per se individually. That would kind of be like a whole, separate piece to
Right, is
that.
that from the constituents that I spoke to and the businesses that I spoke to, that seemed to be the largest concern.
Yeah.
Was the fact that we now only have 1 lane of traffic,
Mhm.
and that is the same lane people have to parallel park.
Mhm.
All right, so I just wanted to know if that was part of this. And then, I guess for now, at this juncture, and this could be a question for the DOT as well, there was different groups that came out in support of this. One, obviously, was some of the bicyclists in the area.
Yeah.
One of the larger groups that came out were the runners.
Yeah.
And not only did they do public comment, they were brought in a couple times, and they were a large part of the drive for this, are runners supposed to be using the quote bike lane in the road as designed in this trial? Because they were corralled and told that they could, and now they're convinced that they can in fact run there, and I don't believe.
Can we just
that's
add
the
that they
case.
were not corralled? Nobody
Yeah,
even knew that they were
what's the
coming.
corralling?
But
Okay.
that is
Well,
a
who were brought
idea.
in? They were brought in?
Either way, it's good to know
came
so
in.
we can.
Well, Robbie's got a
I'm
question.
trying to be like
Yes,
cut and
sir.
dry with this, guys. Seriously? You know,
Well, they
yeah,
said that
I'm
they
the
were
person
asked
who
to come
wanted
here.
them to finish the presentation. I'd like you to respect the floor.
They said that they were asked to come here.
Yeah,
You have the
sorry,
floor.
sorry about the word
You have
correct.
the floor.
So we did have, so the point is, I've been approached multiple times by the running groups now.
Okay.
Because they would like to keep this study as a permanent instance on the road and then take it further. And I would like to know if they are supposed to be in that bike lane or not, because they were told they could be. And I believe that that's not the case, and I feel that the way we're implementing this is putting them in more of a situation of potential conflict with a vehicle than the other. So I would like to know if in that bike lane, you are supposed to have people on foot and or running, or is it just the bike lane? That's my question.
I would say, so, being that it's a bike lane, it's for bikes. However, I will, not to add a caveat to that, you're not supposed to ride your bike on the sidewalk, but there are municipalities who adopt policy where it's allowed. So I would think that that would be something internally, maybe I'm wrong, that something, a policy
This, I
that
mean,
you
I feel
guys
like
would
it's more a
discuss.
question for Linda, if the width
Yeah.
of the bike lane is the multi-use for the runners. I know there's different aspects. I've gone through everything in Monroe County, gone through all the, I mean, we've worked together before, you know, I'm always reading all this early stuff. So I'm just curious, if we implement this like this, are we supposed to be promoting to runners that they should be using this bike?
I think Kelsey answered that question very well, that it could be passed locally that you can use that lane and that purpose, but I don't believe that that's what's intended for. And Christina would be better to answer.
Okay.
Christina is our ped and bike coordinator.
Yeah, generally with the complete streets, it's obviously meant for everyone. It's also meant to organize different types of traffic, different modes of traffic. And, yeah, without any ordinances, I would go strictly for bike there. That'd be safest for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to be clear, because we're telling the public they can use the road in a different way, and I want to make sure we're setting up a road share that's
Right.
not.
I'm familiar with those type A bicyclists that want to be on the road versus, on a trail system, right? I'm not familiar with that type A runner that would prefer to run in a travel lane as opposed to a trail or, so, in my neighborhoods, the runners run on sidewalks or on the road, so it's that, yeah. In an urban environment, I personally wouldn't feel comfortable running on the road.
And some
in a downtown.
do, but,
Right.
yeah, the complete streets, it's meant to organize different modes of traffic. Like I said, without an ordinance or a specific understanding or maybe wayfinding signage. The way this study was designed, I didn't imagine or envision
Right.
runners
Right.
in the bike lane.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to,
Good.
yeah, I'm good for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Samantha Testum. I apologize I didn't get to be here for the first half of your presentation. Complete Streets is something that's not new to me. I implemented it inside the city back in 2016. It took me a couple of years to work on. I worked with the state at the time. I see Andy Karras in the audience. He helped me out extremely in the thorough process of implementing Complete Streets. I've done the Ride for Missing Children 5 times. I could tell you that there is no way that I would feel safe driving my bike down Genesee Street with the way it is. A couple of reasons. Number one, the traffic that's going down, you have vehicles that are also in the bike lane, they are in the center lane, they are in the delivery lane. So there's actually 3 rows of traffic going north, whereas before there was only 1 and 2. The striping is now diminished, which is an extremely big problem inside the city. And I think that if the city were to maintain something like this, that we would have to be on a restriping of each of those lanes on like a 5-month, redo. So, yeah, so that's something that, I have a serious issue with. I also have an issue with there's not much signage for the left turning lane. If you look up There's no signage there that says take a left turn. So again, you still have people down the middle lane, which is technically supposed to be a delivery lane, a left-hand turn lane, a right-hand turn lane. In regards to the point that Council President Galimi brought up, as far as bike lanes go, okay? The difference of Genesee Street, and I think any other municipality that you had compared to, is the size of our sidewalks on Genesee Street. They are, they could have a possibility of having a multi-use, such as walking in a bicycle-friendly corridor, so to speak. If I were to take Genesee Street, I would prefer using my bike on that sidewalk. There's a number of issues that I have seen, videos that I have been presented, pictures that I've taken myself, complaints that people have brought to me. And I'll go back a little bit. So when this first was brought to us as a council, I think the map that we got was from 2012. The city had applied for a DRI project back in 2019 and were awarded, I think, like, I don't know, like $1.9 million in regards to a project. Well, what was presented to them was a median. The median had grass, it had trees, it had so on and so forth, diagonal parking, this, that, and the third. When we got this piece of paper, it was about a half hour before we actually voted on it. And it was actually implemented that weekend inside the city. There was no checklist. So to say that this was a complete street policy that was being implemented was extremely insulting to the legislation that we had put together. Number one, because the checklist was never complete, which I thought was a huge component in looking at the corridor going down Genesee Street, whether it was from Oriskany Boulevard to Cottage Place. Another problem that I have is that we never actually finished the whole entire project, and it ended before the Stanley on Court Street. To say that this is a complete project in regards to adopting a new design corridor, or however you want to call it, on Genesee Street is another problem that I have, especially when you're talking about, talking to businesses along Genesee Street, such as the Stanley, with their loading, unloading docks, so on and so forth. I could tell you that I avoid Genesee Street now, the way it's presented. Number one, I come off Genesee Street. I myself actually forgot that the left lane, because the striping wasn't good and so on and so forth, stuck in that middle lane, realizing that I should have had to merge to that middle lane. So now I'm there, not realizing that I'm driving down, one lane of traffic. And, maybe that was my fault. I should have been paying attention more, but that's definitely a problem that I've seen on a number of occasions. So with that said, not only was the complete street list not completed before this project was actually implemented on Genesee Street, our fire department was not consulted, our police department was not consulted. Now everyone can say to me, well, the size of the street didn't change. Well, what happens when you have a fire truck that's on Genesee Street, say for a car accident, so on and so forth? You now have a fire truck in the middle lane. You have a fire truck that's at the the building, so to speak. So now they're blocking that traffic on Genesee Street going south. They're in the delivery lane, which only leaves that one lane of traffic going north on Genesee Street now. Who is there to direct that traffic, realizing that now those both lanes are covered up? So now you have vehicles that are going across down the bike lane. You also have vehicles that are going down the center lane. You also have traffic going south on Genesee Street. So I could tell you right then and there, as far as a bicyclist and somebody that appreciates the component and the whole idea of complete streets, it was not implemented inside the city at all properly. And I will argue that till I'm blue in the face, because I could tell you, like I said, what I've witnessed has not been a pretty sight. So what I would like to see moving forward, and maybe this is a suggestion that you can give, is if we actually take the complete streets policy, go through the entire checklist, implement it inside the city, and figure out how we can take the bicycle lanes. Because guess what? And I've seen it in other municipalities, and I know it could happen inside the city of Utica. Say somebody's driving north on Genesee Street. A person's driving their bicycle north on Genesee Street. Someone opens up their car door. What's going to happen to that bicyclist? I mean, are they going to have a chance that they pray that they don't get hit by a car that's coming in the same direction of traffic? Like I said, I, as someone that has enjoyed bicycling throughout the city, I would actually feel more comfortable driving down Oriskany Boulevard, where there is no traffic parked on the right, no vehicles parked on the right-hand side, and it's a smooth flow of traffic going down. You don't have, worrying about vehicle doors opening up. That's just, the straight direction of flow of traffic. With that said, I think that if we do move forward and actually adopting something like this and sticking to a definite policy inside the city, that we should look at the size of the sidewalks, inside the city, rather than having our bicyclists in the same direction of traffic or going in the same direction of traffic as vehicles. Because we do have that availability with our sidewalks being that wide to use both of those with that. Then you don't have to worry about whether or not our public safety, you're now going to have ambulances traveling down. And this is another, and not saying that they don't travel down Genesee Street now, but you are also going to have with the ambulance now, or excuse me, with the new hospital coming, say, for instance, okay, an ambulance is coming down Genesee Street. And again, these are some of the things that we could avoid by adjusting this policy into taking into account all these things and actually having a discussion and not just getting a piece of paper from 2012. What's going to happen if you have an ambulance going down north on Genesee Street, okay, and there is a car parked in the parking lane, okay? Whereas before, if you had both directions of traffic, the vehicle had the opportunity to go right without worrying about going into a bicycle lane and without worrying about, getting into the parking lane. They were able just to merge right, and that ambulance was still able to go down, or fire truck or police car was still able to go down that second component of that 2-lane traffic going down Genesee Street.
I have a question.
No, and I'm just going on because I think that this is important.
We have questions around the room, Joe.
And I just, it is important to me because it did, and I'll get there. So I guess, and I'm not finished, so let me finish. So before is with the 2 lanes of traffic, okay, well, they haven't, so I'm going to explain it to them. So when they had 2 lanes of traffic, it was much easier for us. And again, it's really confusing when you're asking delivery trucks to go in the center lane, you're asking vehicles to park on there, you're asking bikes to go in that lane, and then you're also asking traffic to merge to the right. So for instance, if, a public safety vehicle needs to get down. So moving forward, would your suggestion be to stay with this 1-lane traffic with a delivery lane in the middle, bicycle lane, and a bike lane, knowing that we have the availability to move the bike traffic to the sidewalks on Genesee Street? Would that be a safer route to go to as a, bicyclist and vehicle traffic moving forward? Because when I look at the checklist, those are a lot of questions that weren't answered, and they're still not answered, even with this temporary process. Because even a bicyclist, I can't say that a runner is going to feel comfortable going down that as well. To whoever wants to answer it.
That's a loaded question.
Well, I mean, listen, these are a lot of questions that I've had because it just literally, it was overnight that this happened, and
Kelsey,
it's a not safe.
I give a short answer. Do you want to give a long answer? I was tasked to check if this operationally would work, and this is implemented in a lot of really dense cities, Buffalo, Rochester, with much higher. Let me finish, please. With much higher volumes of traffic. Same situation. To really analyze from building front to building front is kind of like something we weren't tasked with doing and would require a whole nother supplemental to look at the cross-section as a whole. So we did not look at that. We were just kind of tasked with a short, does this work? Do we believe it works? Yes. So that's kind of like a very brief, not fully answering.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think you have the width that you think you do on the sidewalk. I mean, there's been questionable whether you even have the 5-foot width that's required through ADA when you have outdoor dining in front of, when was it Bella Regina that used to be there? Mm-hmm. That was encroached on the ADA width that was needed. So I don't think you have the width of the curb to the building frontage for both bicycles and pedestrians. So what we did on Route 5S, granted that was full reconstruction, we changed the curb location. We did separated bike lanes, behind the curb. So we have enough width to establish a designated bike lane, a buffer, and then a sidewalk, which I forgot what that width is. Christina, do you remember what that is?
I don't remember what.
And I doubt you have that in the downtown corridor.
Can I just add to the bicyclists fall under vehicular, traffic law, and that's generally why they're on the road there. So, and that's no storage space. You don't want to lose. Very valuable. It adds to, the aesthetics of your community, and you want people to see that first, a good vision of your city when you come in.
And I guess, would you feel comfortable driving down Genesee Street right now in the bike lane that it is, knowing that you have vehicle traffic going north, you have vehicles parked?
I think you made a good point in terms of that the striping needs to be clear. And And they're also, and Kelsey made a great point with the adjustment. You know, change takes time. You know, we had a lot of problems on Route 5S. You know, we're still having problems on 5S because a lot of people still don't know how to drive through a roundabout, right? So there's still, it takes adjustment, and we see that in every time we're changing lane configuration. So there's that adjustment period. So I think you're dealing with that. People are, I've seen it. This striping is right outside the state office building, so I can see it right out my window. So I watch it all the time, and there's motorists that they think that bike lane is wide enough for them. You know, striping in that bike lane will make a big difference, you know, so it's designated, so it's clear that it's a bike lane. There's a lot of motorists that don't realize that it's a bike lane, so that's a problem. You made a good point with that, as well as the left turn signs. So, you know, I think in a trial run, the city probably didn't want to go and put a lot of overhead signage up on the traffic signals, but that can easily be rectified by adding those left turn signs.
If I can add to this too.
I just want to follow up to that one last question. So I guess, you know, the city has been put on notice by several, you know, public commentators in regards to they've had lawsuits, you know, from another municipality that they're now, you know, bearing that on the municipality. So who's going to be responsible if somebody does get hit? You know, knowing that this is a problem with the striping and so on and so forth. I mean, I can't imagine that the city wouldn't be responsible, you know, knowing that the striping isn't done, knowing that proper signage hasn't been up, knowing that, you know, this
Can
isn't-
I add
is
to
a
this too?
temporary
I think it'll
fix.
help steer the conversation, and we also have questions.
Well, they're going to have to answer it because, I mean, we're
They're not
responsible.
gonna answer it.
Well, then, okay.
I will be.
Okay,
Councilman
so then
Domingo?
how are you going to answer that? So is the city going to be responsible?
Can that be her last question? Because we really have to get this in. We're going to be wrapping up here in 18 minutes.
Well, I'll have to extend it if we will. I will.
Thank you.
extend it. We don't have much left.
Sure, yeah.
You want to answer?
I can answer that, but I don't wanna take, I'll let her finish.
I'm not an attorney. I know we get sued for everything, so.
As I emphasize, and I think Mike has emphasized, and we've all emphasized, yes, right now, there is a problem with it not being striped, but I think Mike and everyone else made it clear that this was a trial, that it would not be permanent. So the need to get this done ASAP is prevalent, and that something, whatever you decide, as the legislators, should be put on the road and should be done quickly. Going forward, if the study, and if we have a determination that this is a safer means, and we don't do what is in the best interest for the city and follow a plan that shows that it's safer, then yes, we're gonna be held liable. But if they're equal, if the plans are equal and they're not, if there's no response that one is safer than the other, then I would say no. But if we have something designated that one way is safer or one way is unsafe, if we do something contrary to that, yes, we will be liable.
So we're gonna go
And
by
just,
one
what is
day
the-
trial?
What is the
Thank
cost
you.
of striping for 5 months?
It's not going to
Austin,
be
are you
fun.
back there? What did it cost us?
They're just not at work right now.
No, that wasn't the question. How much did it cost us for the temporary striping?
Just we're at 8,000.
How much?
8,000.
For the temporary striping, Austin?
Correct.
Okay, so it's gonna cost us $160,000, even if we have to stripe it every 6 months.
No, it's
Which-
going to be
which is-
permanent moving
It's gonna be
forward.
permanent.
Anyway, may I-
I'm just, even if you
Okay,
stripe it permanently.
thank you, Councilman DeBringo.
Who has the floor?
We have to do it in a pocket.
All right, so
Go on the floor.
I want to reset some of the conversation here. And the reason I am for complete streets wasn't to add a bike lane, was actually to make the lanes, the appropriate amount of lanes for Genesee Street with our cars. We just happen to have room now to add bike lanes, which is really cool. As somebody who does bike, not just occasionally, but as often as I can down Genesee Street, I love the bike lanes. It feels so much safer. People have opened their car doors. I can still get around, and there's still room in those 5 feet. I haven't seen anybody get hit with that. Even at times, say somebody, you still have delivery trucks pulling over and double parking and doing their thing. It's still so much easier for me as a biker to go into the single lane instead of these 2 lanes that we used to have and feel safer knowing nobody's going to weave in and out. So I just want to reemphasize here that some people seem to try to be shooting down the bike lane as if that will give justice and reason to have 4 lanes. Maybe that's not your argument, but even if there were no bike lanes, I think the conversation still needs to be that this is about 3 lanes of traffic. Beyond that, yes, we've looked into ideas of maybe bike lanes on the sidewalks, but that also comes with costs that we need to look at. All for signage and those pieces, but yeah, we just need to focus on, I think, the lane of the road. If you're talking about bikes, you're gonna miss it. And as far as I know, all the bikers that I've talked to love it, so. Anybody, I think still has that question next?
So I just,
You have one comment
Just
right here
really quick,
first, and then you're
too.
next.
One, you know, with Complete Streets, there's some other big components. One is education and another is enforcement. So no matter what the redesign ends up being, we need to enforce the rules. Like, we can't just have cars
Would you
driving.
say complete, like 3 lanes would be safer than 4 lanes?
That's a
for
that's a
the
loaded
pedestrians?
question, too, so, possibly.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I'm just, enforcement is
Sure.
a big
So
component
as
of
far
it.
as being safer, yes, 3 lanes is safer than 4 lanes. The statistics show it, it exists nationally. And
Mhm.
every study, post-study, you take a 4-lane facility and convert it to a 3-lane facility, it is safer, the numbers are there. The
Okay.
crashes that Kelsey pointed out for rear ends, there's probably overtake accidents, lane-changing accidents that.
Well, the
you
question I
spoke
have,
about,
and
Right, those
we have
are
a
going
delivery
to
lane
go
in the
away.
middle of the street. Maybe 1 or 2 vehicles could fit there. So now when you're coming down, you have to take the left-hand turn. There's 2 trucks, a UPS truck, a Pepsi truck, Coca-Cola truck, okay? He's a Coca-Cola man. And then, and you have to try to get around them to take that left-hand turn, right? The streets are so compact, they're so short from Elizabeth Street to Bleecker Street. You have just a small little delivery lane there in the center of the meeting. I can
we
show
don't
you, I
de-
have a
we
video
don't design
of this poor
transportation
guy in a
facilities.
truck, okay, that's running through traffic in the snow.
We can take
in the
away
center of
parking
the
and add
road.
it on the
It's
side of
just
the road.
not a good thing.
What if
But
every scenario?
I thought I was on
that's
the.
just my comment, but go ahead.
I do want to sort of repeat what Katie said, because I think it's really important. The question is not, we didn't do this in order to have bike lanes. Bike lanes are the frosting on the cake. But I do just want to very quickly address that thing about bike lanes. I would never, if the bike lane was on the sidewalk, I'll never bike downtown. That's incredibly, crazily unsafe, because you are popping out into intersections from behind parked cars. When I bike in the city, which I don't do as often as I should, I bike where the cars can see me. So, for example, when I go through the roundabout on my bike, I get into the middle of the roundabout, right? That's the safe way to cycle. So I actually think cycling in the bicycle lane alongside cars is far safer than bicycling up on a sidewalk where the cars with whom you're competing when you get to an intersection can't see you. So, I mean, to some extent, where one feels safe cycling, I suppose to some extent is subjective, and so, you know, Sam and I have different feelings about what feels safe. I would never bike on a lane that is up on a sidewalk. It just strikes me as very unsafe.
All
But
right.
the other,
Bulgar Ave is
Hold
perfect
on,
to bike on.
hold on.
May I? The other,
interrupt
one
me.
of the important things that we haven't explicitly said here is that the lanes in which people are driving are now 11 feet wide, whereas before, prior to this, they were 9 feet wide. And I talked to a constituent who really didn't like it at first. And then in the middle of that conversation, he said, yeah, I did lose a side view mirror last year, though. Whizzing down Genesee, another car coming the other direction clipped off his side view mirror. So, Ms. Luby, the part of what's safer about it is that the cars just are appropriately distanced from each other. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank
Our
you.
9-foot
All
lanes are very
right,
narrow.
Councilman Miola, you have the floor.
Councilman DeBrango, Councilman Beatrice was before me. Can I go after him if you don't mind?
Can I go after him and then you
Yeah.
go after me?
So, I just want to speak on Oriskany Boulevard, how you say it's working perfect, and it is working perfect. It's great, that's a great job what you did with the green space, the roundabout, it's all there. My question to you is, has anybody been downtown between 9 o'clock and 4, or like from 8:30 to 10 o'clock in the morning, and from 3:30 to maybe 5 o'clock at night? So your beautiful Oriskany Boulevard, when I come from North Utica in the morning, come to a meeting here, or when I come now, do you know where I am? Because I'm in the middle of Oriskany Boulevard, okay? That's where the traffic goes, all the way back. I'm stuck right in the middle of Oriskany Boulevard. And then when you're going through, everybody, because they are waiting in traffic, are cutting each other off, going through the middle, and it's just chaos. Like I said from day one, if there has to be a better fix for this, because it's not just the striping. Nobody follows it. You are right about enforcement, because nothing's enforced. They write, that if you go down there, I just came here tonight, and I was laughing. They were running it as 2 lanes, okay? They're running it as 2 lanes. That one block, the main block we're talking about, there's probably 10 businesses on it, okay, that everybody tries to deliver in the morning or later in the afternoon, and it is chaos, okay? My last question is, I'm not sure if I can ask this question, the police department is here. Is there any numbers on accidents since this happened or before, or, I'm not sure if you know that data, or?
Yeah, sure. Joe, so all we did was run the data from, so the trial period, right? So the original trial period, just that 90 days.
Right.
We ran that data, compared it to the same 90 days the year prior, and it ended up being, so the year prior there was 14 accidents, and during the trial period there was 11.
So it's basically a wash.
Less.
Pretty much.
It was less.
Well, it's.
11's less
I
than
mean,
14.
All right, Councilman Miola.
So wait, one last thing. I want councilperson friend, she speaks of getting out of the car. She's a lot safer, okay? But the biker's not safer. So it's the same type
Yes,
thing.
we are.
She's not where, I have the floor, so she makes a great point. She parks her car, she doesn't have to worry about getting out. Worst case scenario, she gets run over by a bike, okay? But that biker that's coming down the street, if somebody opens the car door, we're in the same boat. And again, my view on all this, the bulk of our constituents are driving down Genesee Street in cars, okay? People are avoiding Genesee Street now, and nobody can say they're not, they are. They're avoiding Genesee Street, and I think that the majority of the constituents are for this to go back, or I'm not saying go back to 4 lanes, come back to a different process that would work. Thanks, that's all I have.
Councilman Miola.
Thank you very much, Councilman DeBrango. First off, ladies, this is a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. Of course, your experience at this table is well needed, of course, because a lot of my colleagues just don't know which way to go on it. But according to what your plan is saying, and according to what actually the direction that we're taking, it's about the signage. It's about people knowing where to go in that lane. So maybe you can help us implement more signage to make
Including
it simpler.
delivery zones. and maybe
Including
up
delivery
overhead.
zones, any type of additional information you can give us. Of course, we're going to see if we can make it simpler for the driver, for motorist direction. So anybody who travels in this lane would know where they can go and where they can't go when they hit that intersection. So your basics right now is saying very clearly that it's changing the intersection, but you believe it's safer than the 4-lane. I heard that. And I also heard that you feel very strong. Is there any changes as it is now that you feel that would make the area more traffic friendly, or any suggestions that you may have?
It needs to be striped properly.
Yeah, so once you put epoxy down, it stands out so much bolder than just regular paint. Paint is known to wear off. And, you know, since it was temporary, I think it was the right approach, because paint wears off. So epoxy will really bolden that.
Okay.
That stands out well. You're definitely right with signage, you know, to make it more clear to motorists of where they're supposed to be and where they're going. Supplemental signage is always helpful.
Okay.
And a lot of times we even will have signage, you know, for bicycle lanes, so motorists are aware that that's what it's for also. So you're right, that there are supplemental things that could be added that probably weren't during a trial, so you don't spend all that money and maybe, you know, but they definitely enhance the area and will enhance the street.
So signage would educate the driver when they
Definitely.
get into the intersection, plus the additional stripage that we're going to do for the road. And you feel comfortable taking that direction in this intersection? Okay. I'm all set, Mr. Councilman DeBrango.
Councilman.
Okay.
Yeah, DeBrango.
Thank you. I got a couple of things. So, complete streets doesn't necessarily mean because you have a bike lane in the road that's called a complete street, right? Like the city of Utica just did Culver Ave, and they extended the sidewalk. So, I'm able to go through Proctor Park. I come down on my bike with my kids. I can move on the side from, you know, walkers and bicycle traffic. So, it is very safe to use sidewalks. As far as bicycle and pedestrian traffic go. Another issue that I have is that this has not, to make this permanent and to not even see what it would be temporarily going from a Oriskany to Cottage Place is a serious problem. I see members of the Stanley in the audience. I've seen, you know, a number of issues that have been brought up. We talk about bus traffic. Okay, there's a bus stop right in front of 258 Genesee Street. What's going to happen? Where are they going to stop if they need to get in on a lane? So that's another thing that hasn't even been addressed, because that's also from Court Street to Cottage Place. And the last thing I would like to state is, as far as Bank of Utica goes, Bank of Utica has a drive-through. Okay. When there is traffic backed up at Bank of Utica, you do have that traffic waiting to get into Bank of Utica, which is another block for vehicle traffic that has to go around. So my personal opinion, and I appreciate this, and I'm not a professional, so to speak, when it comes to, you know, your designs and so on and so forth, but until all these are actually you know, addressed, and we get the idea of what it's like to have temporary lanes going from Court Street to Cottage Place, I can't stress how important it is to bring this back and go back to the drawing board before you do anything permanent. So let the lines fade and figure out where you got to go from there, because we didn't have any of these discussions when it was 4 lanes of traffic. So thank you.
Okay, Councilman.
Yeah, I just got one thing, going back to the 14 to 11. So as far as the safety issues, we implemented this in the end of October, correct?
October 25th.
But October 25th. So it's been October 25th through the whole winter. So I would say there was no bikes at all. Bikes are a major part of this, is what we're talking about. So I don't really know. We had 11 accidents without bikes being on the road at that time, for the most part. Thank you.
Council personnel.
The point of constituents was brought up, and people seeing that Genesee Street is just a road that people use to get through it, and that's the problem. Downtown is changing, and that's a good thing. It's not meant to just get through our downtown. We're trying to design it to come to us. We're talking about the block with the busiest amount of deliveries. That's my block. Character Coffee, we're right there. I see every hour out that window. I talk with the delivery drivers. Their request for the center, the delivery zone came from delivery drivers. I just want to remind people of that. If you have a different idea and you would like to see maybe parking moved off the street and we make a delivery on the side of the street and lose parking, bring it up. We can talk about that. But I think it's working great in the middle, because that's what I'm hearing from deliveries. But I want to say, when we talk about constituents, I'm representing the first ward. My constituents, we have hundreds and hundreds of people living on these blocks now, of all abilities, all ages. Some are in wheelchairs, some aren't mobile, and they don't have cars. They're walking to the grocery stores. We want a safe, walkable community. And all it costs us is 1 lane of traffic gone on Genesee Street, which is bringing no risk to drivers. It's bringing, 15 seconds more at peak traffic times? This is a no-brainer. It's on everybody else to prove the point how 4 lanes was safer, because it's not. And if this is just about personal preference at the end of the day, but we also have New York State DOT in here telling us 3 lanes is safer, I don't understand the full argument, other than maybe just this is new to you and you have to learn what Complete Streets does. It does improve quality of life everywhere, and I just wanted to add that this is actually coming from my constituents wanting this. If you go down block by block, all the different populations there. But also, we go back to what I loved in the study was in 2010, it said we had almost 9,000 cars. Also in 2010, we had 62,000 people of population. So fast forward to today, this is my last point, in 2023, we're at about 7,000 cars a day, but we're increased population by 3,000. So we're increasing population, but our car usage is down. People aren't staying inside, they're still out and about, and they're using the streets, and they're walking. They're not all just driving. So again, this isn't just about adding bike lanes, like you said, that's the frosting on the cake, but this is about the mobility for everybody.
And what I'll add to that is, I know we talked about that there's more cars right now, percentage-wise, than pedestrians and bicyclists, but until you provide a facility for them, they're not there. So as you provide facilities and they feel safer to be there, that's when your pedestrian and bicycle volumes will go up.
And one more thing to that, one thing we didn't really touch on was how once you get people out of their cars, instead of just driving through onto the sidewalk, that increases your, base for your businesses. People spend more money in your community. So that's a huge aspect.
All right.
And we did bring brochures. Christina brought a bunch of brochures related
All
to
right.
complete
Thank
streets
you.
and
It's
access
6
to
PM.
information.
We have another meeting to start. Anybody have any other questions before we close the meeting? Mr. Urban?
I was listening to the conversation about the bikers, and I grew up riding on a bike. All my friends riding bikes, Genesee Street, all over the city of Utica. Even with 4 lanes, I looked at the bicycle lane because I work on Elizabeth Street, and the bicycle lane is actually wider than when you had the 4-way traffic, 2-way traffic on each side. Because when you're driving a bicycle on Genesee Street or any other street, you close to the cars anyway. And I've never heard of a lot of accidents, people getting hit by doors or anything else. So I'm wondering, why is it such a big safety issue now? When we had, before, people were still riding, even on side streets where there were a lot of cars parked, because they parked right there, and you're riding by on your bicycle. You actually have more space now to ride your bicycle, and people are, and we're worried about people getting hit, and I'm wondering why that's the problem now. Why it's a safety issue, and it's never been a safety issue before, and you actually have more space now to ride a bicycle. I don't get it. Well, if they ride down a bike lane and it's marked, don't you think it'll be safer than it was before?
I'm more concerned about traffic.
And that goes back to the signage. The sign is, I think, what the problem is. I think it's the sign is not, the spacing and everything. It's not a big problem.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank Kelsey.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I know you're on the hot
Thank
seat
you.
there.
And also DOT for coming to our meeting.
You guys
We
are
really
great.
appreciate their input.
You gave us all the answers we needed,
Thank
and
you
I'm
for
sure we'll.
inviting us, and we will be leaving behind the brochures,
Thank you.
guys, and we appreciate the invite.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Councilman
We'll
DeBrango,
meet
we'd like
back up
to
at
have
6:10?
recess. Yep,
All right.
recess.
6:10.
Huge pile, but I can ask Karen for tomorrow.
Legislation to be discussed in our pre-meeting conference. Hey, Scotty.
No, I was organizing Mike's package, so I was not flipping through it. I'm trying to speed stuff along, you know? I'm trying to speed stuff up.
All right, colleagues, I'd like to start with, we have a few pieces. I'd like to start with ordinance number 1. If everybody take their seats. I have to respect Lucretia until she's done. All right. Our first piece of legislation is proposed ordinance for a fire complement change. This was implemented by the administration in lieu of our SAFER grant, which is an excellent thing. I also like to thank our Senator Schumer and our famous Angelo Alfaro for helping us get the 8 positions that we so needed for our fire department. Councilman Beatrice, would you, okay, yeah?
Full council on this?
Full council on it?
I have something else that I would like to add. I mean,
All right,
everyone's
hold
more
on,
than willing to
Samantha.
support this,
All
so-
right, we got everybody but Samantha. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, let's put this piece to bed. Let's go to the next piece. Commissioner of Deeds, Matthew Black. Is there any discussion? Discussion's closed on Commissioner of Deeds. Samantha, to give you more time, I'll give you the rest of the thing on your legislation, if you don't mind.
Sure, so,
But let me get to the other pieces, and then
sure.
then you can
sure,
talk
we
the
go-
rest of the time.
Sure, no
All
problem.
right?
Yep.
Memorial sign for Thomas Lindsay. Great idea, Samantha. Would you like to talk about it?
The only thing is, I want to talk about a location. I thought about the Memorial Park, and then the more I thought about it, the Memorial Park on the Parkway is geared more towards veterans. So I kind of want to find a location that's a little more suitable to the sign location that I would like to put up the memorial.
Okay, so we could discuss that with the Parks Department.
Yeah, sure.
All
So
right.
just a little more time. I mean, it was the 16th anniversary on April 12th of this year. I was on the council when we did rename part of Oriskany Boulevard. But, you know, just to keep his memory alive inside the city, I would like to do something.
All right, so
you know,
would you
on
like to
behalf of
talk about it with the
council. So, yep,
administration
sure.
for a spot?
Sure.
All right.
Absolutely.
Everybody okay with this piece?
Are we going to pass it tonight, though, or committee?
No, I want
I
to
have
put
no
it in
problem
committee
with
because I got to have the actual location of where
So
it's
you
going to be.
want committee?
You want to go to committee?
Please.
I
Yep.
mean, we can, okay. Is there full council on this? Because I think it's a great idea. Clerk? Thank you very much. Our next piece of legislation is, I got a sale of property. Which I don't see too often. 921 Blaine Dinah Street. Calling for a public hearing. I'm good with that. Excellent. Also, this next piece, ordinance number 7, has to refer to committee. Is there any discussion for that legislation? Discussion is closed. Our next piece of legislation, sponsored by Councilwoman Aiello. It's concerning the sale of Whitesboro Street. I guess it looks like a lot. Councilwoman Aiello, are you okay with that sale?
Yes, I am.
Calling for a public hearing is number 8. Please vote on that one. Number 9, please refer to committee. That's for the sale of the property. We have piece number 10, 11, they're E&A transfers, and I think 12? Yes, and 12, and 13. They're all E&A transfers. There was considered discussion in committee of the whole. Is there any additional discussion on those pieces of legislation? Okay, discussion is closed on 10, 11, 12, and 13. They're all ordinances. We need unanimous. Our next piece of legislation sponsored by Councilwoman Aiello. It's for the ordinance adding new traffic schedule. I'm assuming this is for Genesee Street.
Yes.
Would you like to speak on this, or
Yeah, well, we just, we spent an hour on this. We'll just put it in committee.
for the committee?
Oh, before we get into this, just at the back on the E&A transfers really quickly.
Sure.
It just doesn't adjust for what budget year that this is for.
Which one are we speaking about, Samantha?
Actually, 10, 11, and 12.
Does it say anything about any budget year?
President, believe me, as I remember, they're all 22, 23.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
for
just,
cleanup.
yeah, it's just got to be,
Well,
it's just
I
got to
don't
be
call
put,
them cleanups. I'm just saying
yeah,
they
it should, it should
They're all
be,
22, 23.
right, so it should be in there of what the actual,
Well, so it should be on
to adjust for the year-end budget.
But I just want to know that it says to adjust for year-end accrual.
Right,
In the
but just put for the 20.
I'm just saying, they
yeah.
should say the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Would you
For all-
mind
for
reading
all-
that into the record when you introduce the legislation?
For all three, thank you.
All right, we spoke to Councilwoman Aiello. She's referring number 14 to committee. Councilwoman Aiello, this is additional ordinances for Genesee Street. I'm assuming you would like to refer number 15 also to committee.
Please.
Here's number 16. Again, this is for traffic schedule on Genesee Street. I'm assuming to
And-
committee, Councilwoman Aiello.
Yes.
Samantha, do you have any additional discussion?
The only thing that I'm going to ask is, are you,
Are we talking about 16 or 15?
oh, I was on 15.
Okay.
Okay, these are all going into committee?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then I'll save my questions for when they're in the committee.
I guess. I mean, we went through this already. We had a committee meeting about the whole discussion. All right, we're on number 17. I'm assuming refer to committee, Councilman
Committee,
Aiello?
please, thank you.
All right, we're on number 18. This is sponsored by Williamson, Clausen Testa, DeBrango, and Councilman Beatrice. It's changing the lanes. Would anybody like to speak on this piece? Any discussion? Okay, would you like to refer to committee, or would you like to, anybody want to refer to committee, or you want to just throw it?
This is bringing it back to where it was.
According to this, the way this is written, is bringing it back to 4 lanes, yes. You want to refer to committee?
Yeah.
Councilman DeBrango is referring to committee.
We discuss this other stuff further.
Okay. Okay. Samantha, let's get back to your legislation. You have a different way of amending the fire department complement. Sure. You have the table to discuss.
Sure, thank you. So back in March, at our meeting, we amended the complement of the fire department to add 3 positions for a sunset clause.
Councilperson and Majority Leader, I printed the one we passed in March, or I had the clerk print, actually, if you guys want that for the
Yeah,
discussion.
actually, could you pass it out,
Yes.
please?
All
Thank
right,
you.
Continue. All right.
Thank you. So back in March, we passed an ordinance amending the fire complement and a sunset clause, knowing that we had to get 3 positions in that had to be hired. Those were through a sunset clause, and I normally wouldn't vote for that, and I can't remember off the top of my head what the discussion was about it. But in regards to knowing that we have now heard that the Common Council, or that in the city of Utica was awarded the SAFER grant, in order to make the language more clear on the ordinance of amending the composition of the Bureau of Fire, I would suggest to the Common Council that we eliminate the 3 positions that were included through the sunset clause. Those positions were through July 1st of 2023. July 1st, 2023, the Common Council would still have to come back and amend the fire complement to eliminate those 3 positions because it doesn't revert back automatically. With that said, so what I had done with ordinance number 3 was eliminate those 3 positions that we had added through the 3 additional positions, and then take out the language where it says the above composition includes 3 additional positions for the firefighter EMTs. It is not intended to permanently increase the composition of Bureau of Fire of the fire department complement, and shall sunset and return to the level of 81 positions after July 31st. So in order to make this just a little more clear, so the Common Council doesn't have to come back on July 1st to eliminate those 3 positions and then just stick with the language that was originally, that the Common Council originally would have amended, knowing that we would add those 8 positions for the SAFER grant. And like I said, it's just to clear up language so that the sunset clause is no longer in there. Because we really shouldn't be doing ordinances on sunset clauses. That's basically, the argument of not, putting those positions in contingent, because we would have to come back to the drawing board anyways. So, like I said, this is just to clarify the language of the sunset clause and just making those 8 positions a little clearer for the fire complement. Yes.
Part of the reason I had the city clerk.
As a candy.
Sorry. You know I'm always eating candy.
Yes,
I'm
I
sorry.
know.
No, part of the reason I wanted the March 15th ordinance printed was whatever we do, I want to make sure, and if Corporation Council can just briefly look at this really quick, same night, sorry, these may go on committee. On March 15th, it said the above composition includes 3 additional positions, etc. The complement of firefighter EMTs shall sunset and return to the level of 81 positions after July 1st, 2023. This is on the books, saying that it'll sunset then. So between, what do we do with this now?
You reconsider it and dismiss it.
That's what I was asking. So whatever we do, either tonight or in the future, I think we should be rescinding this one so it doesn't cause problems in the future.
So regardless, the one that I presented
Right.
it's a complete insertion of that, so it's to read as follows.
So it rescinds and replaces the one we previously passed?
Absolutely.
This whole section?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to verify that. Okay.
But why is he saying that you have to rescind that
Well,
ordinance?
because that would be the cleanest way to do it. That's why.
And that's what you should do, hence the reason why I put in 2 ordinances.
There's so much stuff
I
that
just wanted to
goes,
get it on the floor for discussion. Right.
so much goes into the final record that it gets very confusing in what you're doing. I think if you have something you introduce that is not going to be applicable, and it obviously isn't, because you're going to 135 with one ordinance, it takes in everything. That one ordinance goes to 135, that's it. So that ordinance, if that's what you want, you pass that. Anything else is superfluous. Now, as correctly pointed out, we have an ordinance that sunsets. But this sort of overrides that. So I think if you've got something on the books, you should get rid of it. I would have them take a motion to reconsider the one you adopted and then defeat it. And therefore, it's gone. It's not something on the books. It's very clear. It came in and went out. And then you will consider the 135, and that is exactly what your compliments be. Once you pass that, the EMTs are in there, and it's all included.
Correct.
I think. And I personally, I just think it's neater.
So the legislation that I
Can
presented
hold on, so can I
clarifies
just
that. Thank you.
add one thing to that? I think what the judge is stating, if in the crazy instance that we would have to recreate the book based on the ordinances that were passed, then rescinding that tonight would be removing it from the actual sequential ordinances that were passed. Although, the way you wrote this both times is it's the entire section. The actual city code says that. And this would actually replace section C in its entirety anyhow. So it is a 6-in-1, but yeah.
And
Okay.
the reference to the 3 additional positions, I changed so that it would account for the 8 additional that you'd be adding. So I amended that section, so it all reads correctly. But
So-
if you're talking about wanting to rescind it, yes, technically you could.
Technically.
But this is what the ordinance is gonna do. If you
long as we're
wanted to amend it,
still
read as follows.
Still hit the floor. And I appreciate you clarifying that. So with that said, I would suggest bringing it back, so you're not just rescinding, everything's off the books, replacing it with those 3 positions, eliminating those 3 positions with one ordinance, okay? So now you know that you're bringing up from 124 back to 123, and then replacing it with the ordinance for number 4. Thank you.
That's all.
Okay.
That's my
So you should pass number 3 and 4, because they coincide with one
No,
another.
actually, no, we shouldn't pass number 3 and 4. According to what our colleagues are telling us, Samantha, the ordinance that's dated, ordinance number 71, has to be rescinded.
Right,
So
or
once
you
that's
could
rescinded, then we can follow through as the judge mentioned. Of course, the sections over here voting on it, does not replace or rescind it, Samantha.
Yes, it
So-
does. It
no,
clarifies it,
doesn't.
Frank. It does.
Doesn't, Samantha. Thank you very
Come
much.
on.
All right, is there any other additional discussions on the compliment? Well, according to both our president and our council, they would like to rescind the one that our president passed out.
No.
Very simple. And then we're
But
going to
with all
vote
due-
on the one that we sponsored, yes.
But with all due respect, it
We
goes
don't need
back
'em.
to the, like she
They're not
just
needed.
said. So even if you reconsider, you
No, you
still
don't.
should have a piece of legislation that brings it down
No, you
from
were confused.
124, from the 84 positions to the 81 positions. Make it clean, because you put a sunset clause that it was July 31st. So now you're making it official as of today, April 19th, 2023, that you're bringing those positions from 84 to 81. That brings it back to the original complement without the sunset clause. Then you pass ordinance number 4, which does not bring it back from the original 135. It brings it back from 124 to 132, so that the numbers match up. So now you know that you're passing an ordinance, number 3, that states you're moving it from 127 to 124. Then you're bringing it from 124 to 132, which accounts for those 8 positions. So you're not worried about bringing it from that 132 back down to that 134. Make it clear so that you're not worried about the sunset clause that should have reverted on July 1st, 2023. You are now amending that. Instead of July 1st with the sunset clause, you are now making that amendment that you're bringing those 3, eliminating those 3 positions, and now adding those 8 positions in the ordinance. It makes it clear. You're not worried about reverting it back without the sunset clause. Make it simple for everybody.
Judge.
What makes sense
So-
to me is number 4.
Thank you.
Judge, are you agreeing? I want to ask a question.
I'm saying to you, the only
Thank you.
ordinance that makes any sense to me is number 4.
Okay.
Because I think you've all, if you do number 4, that comes out to, you're adding 8 positions. How you get from 89?
Stephanie, can you clear that up?
I just want to make it, I want to make it clear that
The
the
numbers are a little different.
Yeah, you can't just pass
You see?
because of what's
4,
already on the
I
books.
get into
Right.
4 and it confuses me. Then I get into number 3, and that's where we add the
Those 3
EMTs.
temporary positions
And
for the
that-
sunset
that's a
clause.
good ordinance. But then
Councilman DeBrango, you want the floor?
If you get to 1,
Oh, you meant.
to 24, and you add 8 to that, you get 132.
Right.
And I don't, and I think 132
That's what it should be
has
after
to
Yes.
go to number 1 is 135, so that's not
Right.
it.
Oh,
So that's not right.
Right. Guys, this isn't my first piece of legislation that I passed.
4 is
Right.
132.
Making a mountain out of a molehill.
Right.
Judge, you're right.
You're
Pass
right.
number 3 and you pass number 4. It's really not that difficult.
Stephanie, would you like to speak on it?
Well, I think that's what you want your complicated.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Am
So-
I correct?
Yes.
Everybody gonna agree that
It's
your
really
complicated?
not
I
that
agree with
difficult
you.
because it's my piece of legislation.
You agree with
It's cut
that?
and dry.
Right. And that's what I don't like.
Sir,
It's because it's originally.
you agree with that?
Are you talking to Beatrice?
Talk to
The council person?
the fire chief.
Oh,
Yes, we want to be at 132.
You've
Yes.
been 132.
Okay, so that's,
after July.
That's why.
After July.
He wanted to be at 132 after July 5th.
July.
yes, exactly.
Which,
And
right
it-
now, he wanted to be at 135.
It's
But
common
if
sense,
we have
guys.
3 people on the books that are gonna retire, and
Right.
we're adding 3, it should be at 135.
Right, so then you can say effective July
Well,
1st,
so
2023.
if we're not moving
Am I
on
right
these
in
tonight,
saying
it's a
that?
different conversation. Can,
Mr. President, would you like the floor?
I would.
Go ahead, sir.
That's not the way I do it.
Councilman, Mr. President has the floor. Would you please give him the floor?
All right, so I did go through the timing of when these things need to be added, et cetera. I believe it's the middle of August. I don't have the exact date in my head anymore, but the middle of August is when we have to have the 132.
The period of
Yeah.
performance starts August 20th.
Exactly, August 20th, right? We did add the 3. Depending on when we pass these, if we don't pass them tonight, it's a little different story, right? If we don't pass them tonight, it's 6 in one, half dozen in the other. The difference being, if we rescind March 15th and pass the 2 ordinances sponsored by Councilwoman Testa, there's no sunset clause and it gets the job done, okay? If we pass ordinance number 1, we're doing it with a sunset clause.
Correct.
Which can be
something we have to follow and keep up on, right?
right. So why we
So,
gotta do that?
while I agree with the judge, what I'm trying to state here is that technically they're the same, as long as we don't move now, because there are people employed within the three positions right now. How many are actually employed within the three, though?
Yes. Yeah.
So
We're-
so you could technically have the both pieces of legislation effective May 15th to be on the safe side, both effective July 1st, 2023.
Right, because those people are on the books right now.
Correct.
Right, exactly.
So to eliminate the sunset clause being in there.
So the real question is, are we moving on these tonight? Or are we,
It's an ordinance and it needs unanimous.
right, so are these going in
So,
committee, or?
I'm in favor, of course, number one, okay? And there was almost everybody, most everybody was here for number one. So if there's a possibility that it has to be changed, I guess,
So then-
Stephanie brought this legislation to our table. She is the enforcement, and she's making sure that if there's anything goes wrong with the SAFER grant, this legislation is supporting it.
That has nothing
She's
to
the
do-
one that's going to move on it, and of course, the sunset clause is incled in number one.
Yeah, but the
I
judge.
believe we need the
Come-
mayor to sign it by tomorrow for us to actually accept it.
Right.
That's step one,
Right.
which has nothing to do with us.
Right.
So hopefully he
You can
signs
take
it.
my name off
Yeah.
it.
So Councilman
I don't
Petrus,
wanna be on it.
you're not
Because-
interested in number one?
Because you know what? Every time we get involved with the fire department, we come up with something, and I'm not trying to stick up for anybody, it's the same thing over and over. The judge told us, this is the simple way to do it, it's over with. Why keep two things? I hate to say it, because she's bringing it up, it's ridiculous. It's really not right. So, yeah, whatever you guys do, I'm not gonna be on one right now.
Then I'm assuming all pieces will be referred to committee. Any other discussions?
Do you need it for the SAFER grant?
No,
Oh, okay, so then we'll put all.
not
pieces-
tonight.
We'll put all pieces
No.
of
Okay.
It's just ridiculous.
All right.
Do
You're
you have
unanimous.
any no votes tonight? On
Well,
any of this?
they can't take a straw poll, so they don't know.
No.
He just said he's not voting
If
for
you
it.
don't have any no votes, I get rid of the EMT thing you passed before. Because it becomes superfluous.
I got that,
If
Your
you, if you pass tonight,
I was assuming
just a second, you
Wonder
should
rock,
be
paper,
talking,
scissors, shoot?
should be talking when I'm talking.
I know.
If you pass an ordinance that says the complement is 132, that's the complement, you know?
I understand, Your
And
Honor.
it includes EMT in that, 81, I think the figure there, is 89 people, that includes the EMTs. So
Okay.
you've done it all in one ordinance. I think it's just cleaner, that's all. You're the ones who control the complement of the fire department.
Correct. And one
So the
ordinance,
final
number one,
ordinance
has
that
done
you
it all.
passed,
Correct.
which I think is number 4, which brings your complement to 132, it doesn't.
Gotcha.
And I understand what Mr. Giorgio had in mind, but we just disagree on the methodology, that's all.
Okay. All right.
I'd like to get rid of the March thing because.
That's understood.
It's gonna be in the books and it'll be followed and what happened in March, in July.
Getting rid of the,
You gotta get rid of it, that's what you do.
I understand it.
That's my position.
We're referring them to committee.
Do what you want.
Everything, we're not gonna vote on any of it?
Nope, because there's always one no vote. That is an ordinance and needs unanimous. All right? Is there any more discussions on the amending the fire department bureau? Okay, discussion is closed.
Can
We
I-
have, oh, would you like to say something?
Just changing the subject, how are people going to vote on the tree ordinance? I'd like to bring it out tonight. I changed it
So,
in terms of what people's worries were. It spends no money, it possibly generates some money, and Dave Short wants it.
okay, so here's what I'm gonna tell you on that, and, we're gonna have a guest speaker at 7.
Right.
Correct? I think it's a great plan.
Great.
However, my colleague, Mark Williamson, has worked this for 12 years, and he was shot down on it all the time. I agree with you. I think he agrees with part of it. He's not here tonight, and I think we should put this in committee until Mark is here to vote. That's my opinion. That's,
Okay.
okay?
All right, thank you.
Unrelated to anything
President.
we've currently discussed, I
Oh,
promise.
please, go
Yeah,
right ahead.
No, it's good. So, it was a couple of months ago, I believe, we increased the reimbursement amount for sidewalks.
More than a couple months ago, it was right after budget season last year.
3 sets of couples, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in any case, it's up. It went from 4 to 8.
Yes.
and I'm addressing the council with this because I just went through this morning. That's why I was talking to 80 Cross out there to get more details on it. So I just wanted to bring it up to the council because you're all here. Residential doesn't have a cap, correct? Okay.
Commercial.
Right, and when we raised the amount, and the reason we raised the amount is because concrete is anywhere between $12 and $15 a square now. I just recently helped a business get the application to replace some sidewalks, and what we basically found was the cap of reimbursement is still $1,000.
Correct.
So we did not increase the cap, even though we doubled the amount that's reimbursed. So I'd like to just bring that up to the council. If we can address that, especially since people are going to start, moving on this soon. The whole purpose, we increased the amount we put in the actual line and the amount we reimburse was so that we can get more sidewalks done in the city. But having a $1,000 cap at this point per project for the businesses and not-for-profits when they're replacing their sidewalks is going to be cost prohibitive. So,
Isn't that
just want
one?
to put that out there. We don't need to discuss it now.
I
but
don't
if-
think, I don't think we, is it law $1,000 cap,
Yeah,
Michael?
for commercials,
Spend
yeah.
$1,000 cap for
Yeah.
commercial, yeah.
For commercial, residential doesn't have a cap.
Do you have the legislation somewhere? Is it written in law somewhere?
Yeah, we can pull it.
All right, why don't we pull it and we can amend it to whatever suggestion you may have. All right?
Okay.
Very good.
You doubled the residential, you probably should double the commercial.
Whatever you feel more comfortable. Let's bring it to the table. Is there any other discussions? Michael, you all set, or you have any
I'm
more?
good.
All right. I'd like to have a 15-minute break until we start our 7 o'clock session.
Cool.
Thank you, council.
19th, 2023. We've had a lot of meetings already, so we're going to start the final main meeting right now. Clerk, please call the roll.
Aiello, Burmaster, Friend, Miola, Irvin, Beatrice, Colosimo Testa, DeBrango, Galimi are present.
Please rise for the pledge, followed by a moment of silence for the deceased members of the council. This evening is the minutes of the previous meeting. The minutes have been posted to eCode 360 for the public and council to review. Is there a motion to accept?
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading of the minutes, please.
We have a second from Burmaster. If no one is opposed, the minutes have been accepted, and we are waiving of the reading. All right. Next order of business is public hearing. We do have two ordinances in public hearing. The sale of 720 to 722 Warren Street and the sale of 1215 Warren Street. We do have multiple people signed up for public comment period, so I'm just going to ask, is anyone here that was actually had intent to speak on those properties? Okay. Public hearing is now closed. Do we have a motion to pull ordinance number 8 from committee? We have a motion from Miola. So I'm going with Burmaster, thank you. Second with from Burmaster. This is, all right, no one's opposed, it's on the floor. Ordinance approving the designation of Waters Capital Management, George Waters, as an eligible and qualified project sponsor pursuant to Article 15 of General Municipal Law for the purpose of the sale of 720 and 722 Warren Street. This is for a sum of $250. The public hearing was just held. Your votes.
The bottom says property is $80,000, is that correct?
It is not correct. Good catch. Commissioner Thomas is no longer here.
Yeah, it's the 250.
So I'd like to make a motion to amend, Mr. President.
Okay.
To change the 80,000 in the second to last paragraph to 250.
Second, Mr. President.
$250, correct?
$250, .00.
We have a second? Any opposed?
Nope.
Okay, it's been amended. Your votes.
As amended. Joey's take the call.
7 is adopted.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to pull ordinance number 10? Motion from Friend, second from Miola. They already had their hands up, sorry. Thank you, everyone, for moving things along. Any opposed? It's on the floor for a vote. This is an ordinance approving the designation of Maria Nunez and Francisco Valdez as an eligible qualified project sponsor pursuant to Article 15 of GML for the purpose of the sale of 1215 Warren Street. This is a sum of $15,000 in both places that it belongs. Public hearing was just held. Your votes.
7 is adopted.
That closes the public hearing section of the meeting. Next order of business is public comment period. We have 4 people signed up to speak. First of which is Tom Carcone. Please come forward. Podium's at the front today. The Common Council's provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule. Are you in agreement with this?
I am.
Please state your name.
Tom Carcone.
You may begin.
Just quickly, sunset clause is a contractual term. It doesn't belong here in Common Council. The reason why is that you guys are voting on ordinance. You're actually changing the city charter. Anytime the city charter changes, you're actually changing the rules and laws of the city of Utica. And I don't want to tell you guys how to do your job. I'm just trying to educate a little bit, you're taking your own authorities away. So if you set a date to a sunset clause, I believe the first time that it was ever used was in the ARPA funding for the police officer jobs. You're not giving it the opportunity to play its course and see if you can maintain it and reevaluate it, and then have new legislation and a vote to amend it as properly at the time that it expires. So avoiding a sunset clause is a good habit to get into, because if you start utilizing it, especially if it's over 2-3 years, you're now taking the legislation and the vote on the specific subject out of the hands, out of the city council members that might be totally different 3 years from now. So just to sum that up, at all costs, you guys would probably be better off not limiting your own ability to put legislation forward and vote on something with sunset clause dates. You're limiting your own power, and you're limiting the power of future councils if you do so. That set aside, I just want to give an update on our self-insurance. We have now lost the one representative the city had on the healthcare committee that we are not part of, but they do have representatives, and they have been meeting with the other unions. Lori Robel was the one person that was assigned to that committee for the city. The second was Heather Moat. Lori Robel is now gone, and from the other meetings, I think Heather Moat made it pretty clear that she's going to be gone. So just when you're asking us to go over to self-insurance, I want to let you guys know that the two representatives that handled self-insurance for the city of Utica are no longer going to be employed in here within a couple months. One's already gone. So when you're asking us to commit and trust the city with our health insurance and making the determinations on premium setting and what coverages we have, you don't even have a representative on that committee that's going to be employed past September. You're going to be solely dependent on Adirondack Financial, and I don't believe there's anybody else that's even been in training by the city behind Heather Moat and Lori Robel to even begin learning the extremely difficult understandings of insurance and premiums. So that makes it more difficult for us to put it back into the city's hands. We do have a path to go self-insurance on the mayor's desk. May 18th is our scheduled impasse arbitration on our contract, which is less than a month away. We do intend to continue with that date. If you know that's not completed, and just so you guys know that after May 18th and after the impasse arbitration begins, I don't believe it'll be heard there, and they'll have the December 31st deadline to go back to a fully funded plan. And it'll ultimately fall on the taxpayers at 1.5, 1.8 in the next administration. We've done everything we could to show you that we should be getting that done. You just saved over $2 million in a SAFER grant that we helped you get. You avoid $1.5 to $1.8 million if you don't get a deal done with us. That's $3.8 million that could compensate anything that you give us anyway. So it's probably better to get a deal done. You got a month to do it. Other than that, I've been here for months. I've been writing letters for years to the administration, and we were fully clear that we were going to protect our contract when it was violated and imposed without an agreement. So we're not going to hold the responsibility to that. Obviously, you guys could do what you do to try and convince that. I hear people say that, you know, contract negotiations aren't ours. Then they talk about the school district, or they talk about the zoo, or they talk about whatever else they get involved in, that they could use their influence on those types of things. But when it's the contract between the firefighters and the city of Utica, they don't have anything to do with it. So try and get it done. It'll help your taxpayers. Have a good night.
Thank you. Next speaker this evening is Alyssa Bolt. Good evening. The Common Council provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule. Are you agreeing with this? State your name and you may begin. Thank you.
My name's Alyssa Bolt. Some of you know me. So those of you who know me know that I'm a firm believer in the harm reduction approach toward people who use drugs, and that increased police presence in a struggling community is not something I would ever advocate. But we've got a situation on our hands in Utica that some of you are already well aware of, and brainstorming solutions too that needs some kind of urgent intervention from the city's leadership, which is the increased criminal activity and especially drug use in the hallways and stairwells of certain apartment buildings, such as Kennedy Plaza and Lillian Cooper apartments. Most of my work as a social services professional is dealing with people who are either street homeless or residents of shelters, but at the present I have close to 20 people in my caseload who are not homeless, but residents of those buildings asking for professional help finding a new place to live because they feel so unsafe in their own apartments in the hallways. The possible solutions to this probably require a variety of approaches. I'm not here to say that I have any one particular answer that will solve everything. I don't. I think we need a lot of approaches to tackle this problem quickly before it becomes even more serious than it is. But the one thing I want to propose is that we consider the idea of raising a volunteer corps and, if necessary, paying some people a stipend to patrol these hallways composed of residents of the building as well as their concerned friends and relatives to be trained to pick up needles and other dangerous debris and keep the peace in these hallways so that people can feel safe where they live. Doing so would alleviate a problem that is hurting the ability of an already overworked social services situation to help those who need it most by making us shuffle people between different buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker this evening is Anthony Testa.
Mr. President, he said Kennedy Plaza, and what was the other building?
Lillian Cooper.
Lillian Cooper.
Lillian Cooper?
Lillian.
Lily?
The one across from Firestone. Or, sorry, Tallman's. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. The Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule.
Yes.
Are you in agreement with this?
Yes.
Please state your name. You may
Anthony
begin.
Testa. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Testa, and I'm a co-facilitator of the West Utica Neighborhood Association. The WUNA team will be celebrating their one-year anniversary next month. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank everyone in this room for their support, as well as the entire community that has been donating to us and supporting us. West Utica Neighborhood Association has had to become creative and active in West Utica to engage residents, and this is not an easy task. Dan and Patrick at the Irish Cultural Center have been extremely supportive and helpful. We would like to be able to honor them for their commitment and trust placed on the West Utica Neighborhood Association. We struggled solely on securing a location for the meeting with community members, and without them, we would not be where we are today. So it would be an honor to do so on May 10th. With that, I want to share some proposed meetings. Meet the Candidate School Board Forum, that's on May 10th. As many of you know, our location is 623 Columbia Street, Utica, New York, or the Irish Cultural Center. We're also doing a Meet the Candidates Forum for mayoral candidates. That's June 14th. And we will also be working cohesively with Upstate Family Services right in West Utica on July 12th. We're going to be working in conjunction with them with quite a few future events, so we're very excited for that. That's a relationship that we're developing and building strongly. Also, we are planning, once again, several events. We're going to push in at the Global Mill on 4/29 at 1 p.m., so April 29th, 1 p.m. It's a blood pressure clinic, and they had asked us to send a representative, either one of the facilitators, to come and introduce and talk to the community and get out there with the community. West Utica Cleanup Day. That's May 21st at 9 a.m. at Lincoln Park. Please feel free to join us. Memorial Day Parade, May 29th at 10 a.m. We are looking for volunteers to walk with us, so if you know anybody who would like to walk with us, please send them our way in our direction. We'd be glad to work with anyone. Also, a city-sponsored West Utica Neighborhood Association event for June 8th from 5 to 7 o'clock at Addison Miller. We'll have food trucks, raffles, giveaways, face painting. The host will be the well-known Amos Donnell, featuring DJ Ease One. We're looking for full support for the event from all. West Utica Neighborhood Association will provide pop-up Sundays, compliments of stewards, and cookouts this summer as the time allows. West Utica Neighborhood Association would like to establish a safe exchange zone on the west side. How active is the safety exchange at the police department on Oriskany Street? I can confidently say members from the west side are not hiking through construction to get there, nor are they volunteering to go to the Utica Police Department. The UPD does a great job, and West Utica could benefit directly from a safety exchange zone. All in all, West Utica Neighborhood Association appreciates the involvement and support, especially by Bob Burmaster, so thank you, Bob, provided, and we look forward to an exciting year. Moving forward, the team is committed to making West Utica one of the best sides in town, but we need support from all of you. As volunteers, we are giving 110%. Can you help us? As always, the west side is the best side. And I would also like to finish up by saying one more thing. We have gained many donors and sponsors, and we are forever grateful for that. And I'd also like to note that because of our donation and fundraising coordinator who we've implemented into the Neighborhood Association, we have secured 2 full pallets of mulch to beautify West Utica. And that was donated by Lowe's in New Hartford. So we are forever grateful for that and all of our sponsors. For a full list of our sponsors, please join us or go on our West Utica Neighborhood Association Facebook page, and you can see all the lists of them there. And thank you, and have a great night.
Thank you. Ron Vincent will be our final speaker this evening in public comment period. The Common Council's provided you a copy of Section 3244, Public Comment Period Rule. Are you in agreement with this?
Yes, I am.
Please state your name and you may begin.
My name's Ron Vincent. I'm a resident of North Utica. I got here at 5 o'clock tonight, or shortly thereafter, and I was very interested in hearing the speech about the unsafe streets, or safe streets, whatever you want to call it. I heard tonight that it cost $80,000, I believe, of Utica taxpayers' dollars to do a temporary striping of the street for a test. And everybody talks about from Cottage Place to Oriskany Boulevard is where the test area is. I think it really starts at the junction of Lafayette, because if you look in front of the old Boston store, you don't see any striping there for a bicycle path. One of the problems I noticed with it, coming over from the North Utica side, you come over a bridge, a 1-lane bridge, which turns into a 3-lane road. If they wanted to stripe something, they should have turned it into a 2-stripe, because you can make a left-hand turn and you can go straight or right. But there was a middle lane where everybody goes into what they call the unloading zone, or the left-hand turn zone on Genesee Street. And they go all the way up to Lafayette and try to cut in on people. Every time I come to a common council meeting, somebody seems to want to sideswipe me because I'm in the right-hand lane. There's a New York State law, I believe, that when you're driving someplace, you stay in the right-hand lane. You pass in the left, or you follow the signs. Oh, excuse me, there weren't any signs. There was some sort of paint job done. I think that whoever does our St. Patrick's Day parade could have probably done a better job than the one that was done out there.
Please continue with the commentary, but a little less disparaging, if you wouldn't mind. But yeah.
Oh, I thought.
All right.
I think the Irish people could have done a better job than they did out there.
Thank you.
But one thing about it is, I've been coming to all the common council meetings. I know our police department and our fire department found out the same time I did, the night before the striping, or 2 days before the striping, whatever it was. So it doesn't matter how our important people, what they think about some sort of a job like that for rushing ambulances and fire trucks and emergency vehicles and police that might have to get to a place in a case of an emergency, was never taken into consideration. But you know what really bothers me? The public was never notified about anything. For the last 12 years, anything that's been done in this city, there's been very little input, or very few questions asked of the taxpayers, the public, the people, the backbone of this city, the people that pay everybody's salary in this room. Nobody asks us what we think about something. Should we do this? Should we do that? What do you think about it? You think this could be a good idea? Should we try it? No, nothing's ever been said. As I look around me tonight, I see 3 individuals here, all running for the mayor of Utica pretty soon. There's a 4th one, but I don't even know if he knows where City Hall is. But I hope that one of the 3 of you people that get elected, just remember this. When you want to know about something that you want to do or you think is a good idea, get out and talk to the people. Let the people give you some suggestions. I'll bet you $10 if they run another test and waste another $80,000, $200,000, whatever it's going to cost to put some more paint on the street. What they ought to do is have 2 police cars, one at each end, and anybody that does anything wrong, pull them over, write them a ticket, and say, by the way, why did you do this? And maybe they'll get some sort of public input somehow. But this is what the city needs. They need to listen to the people. They need to get a chance to talk to the people. And just heed what the people say. Not something upstairs being decided what's going to happen and then put in front of 9 people to vote on if it should be done or not. The 9 people have constituents. They do get around and talk to people. But the people that start the thing going never talks to anybody. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right, that concludes public comment period. I'd like to move on to our common council guest. Gina Pierce is the executive director of the CNY Conservancy. She's here to give an update on the Conservancy in general and also talk about Tree City USA. Before you begin, Councilman Williamson did want to say welcome. He couldn't be here this evening. He had a conference to attend, but he did want to be here, and he said he'll be watching the YouTube channel. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, hello, I'm Gina Pierce, the Executive Director of the Central New York Conservancy. We are a small nonprofit that has been in existence for 20 years to help the city of Utica maintain, preserve, and beautify its park system. And so for that time, we have done projects like historic preservation projects in F.T. Proctor Park. We plant and maintain and water the flowers on the parkway. We bring teams in to clean and individuals, and we've cleared trails, and we do all sorts of good stuff. And we also plant trees. So before I started in this role, I appreciated trees, but I didn't know a lot about trees, and I didn't know many facts about trees, but now I do. So why would we want to become a Tree City USA? Trees help absorb the sounds of traffic in urban areas by 40%. Neighborhoods with trees are 7 to 9 degrees cooler than those without. Trees help with stormwater mitigation. Houses with trees have a higher property value. Green spaces play a major role in improving mental and physical health. Trees absorb carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Being a tree city would demonstrate our commitment to the environment, and it's a great way to build civic pride among residents. Being a Tree City USA can position our community as an attractive place to live. And when you start thinking about trees and this vision of what a Tree City USA looks like, I was thinking today and I thought, what movies have I seen that have a beautiful tree-lined street? And the one that came to mind was the movie Big. I haven't seen it in a million years, but I watched the clip, the last scene of the movie, and I just remembered him getting out of the car and being on this spectacularly beautiful tree-lined street. So when I think of a Tree City, USA, it brings this vision of a beautiful city to mind, and I think that when people like HR recruiters and realtors are talking to people that are considering moving to our community and they use the phrase, we're a Tree City, USA, they will instantly get a picture in their mind of what our city is. I think it would be a win-win for our residents and for our city. I think it would be a great designation for us to have. Along with that designation, there's a wonderful PR opportunity. They provide signage and flags and all sorts of good stuff. So I think it paints a beautiful picture, and I hope that we can make it happen. Thank you.
Clerk, do we have any communications from the mayor? Okay, I believe we may have a cash report.
The City of Utica cash report for March 2023 is $63.019 million received and filed.
Thank you. Before the reports from the city officers, I'd like to thank Gina Pierce from the CNY Conservancy again for joining us this evening. It was a good update. Thank you. Chief Ingersoll, Fire Department.
I'd just like to once again thank Senator Schumer and all the support from Mayor and Common Council for pursuing the SAFER grant. We successfully received it on April 10th. We appreciate it, and we look forward to increasing the complement of the fire department. Thank you.
Thank you. Corporation Counsel.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Commissioner Phillips.
I think I want to say two things. One is it's a time of year in the spring where some days our codes officers don't do housing inspections unless they're emergencies, and they walk the streets, they drive the streets, and they're working on making sure the neighborhoods are as clean as possible going into the summer. So that being said, if there are neighborhoods that the council people or members of the public would like us to visit, think aren't getting enough attention, just let us know, because this is the best time of the year to do that. And be friendly to them. They're just doing a job. They've had to deal with some stuff this year that is unfortunate. And the second thing I want to say, it's kind of unrelated to my job as codes commissioner, but Walt and Lily Savage have been staples of the community for a long time. They sat in our Walt Savage sat on our police reform board and has done work with the city whenever we've called upon them. And after, I think, 40 years of marriage, they're renewing their vows this weekend. So I wanted to congratulate them and let you guys know, in case you know them and they've made an impact in your life, to congratulate them. That's it.
Thank you. Deputy Chief Noonan.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
All right. Petitions, remonstrances, and appeals. First District, Keita Aiello, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. All I want to say tonight is thank you, Liz, for your words on just Kennedy Plaza and Lillian Cooper and the improvements we need there. I just echo everything she says on the matter. And we did have a phone call. Well, I was on the phone. Councilwoman Celeste Friend was able to meet with them in person. And this was back on April 7th, meeting with actual tenants and hearing the needs and demands from them firsthand of improvements that can be made. We are looking into security cameras in there by the end of the month, and hopefully some more increased security throughout, but we'll definitely follow up on this, so thank you. That is all tonight.
Thank you. Second District, Councilman Burmaster, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Amy and Anthony for all the hard work they do in West Utica. I see a difference. There's more and more people coming to the meetings, and it's good that the people get involved, and I want to thank you for putting in the time and doing what you do, because it does make a difference, and I appreciate it. Mr. President, that's all I have at this time.
Thank you. Third District, Councilperson Friend, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't usually talk about personal things during remonstrances. I'm going to make an exception tonight and wish Andy Zygmunt a happy birthday. He's home listening tonight, so my partner and best friend and all that good stuff. So happy birthday, Andy. That's all I have tonight, Mr. President.
Thank you. 4th District and Majority Leader Frank Miola, you have the floor.
Mr. President, I'm going to yield my time to my colleague tonight. Thank you.
All right. 5th District, Venice Irvin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Johnson Park Center still looks like a war zone over there, but the construction people actually clean the streets each night before they leave, so that's pretty good. If you go through there, they actually have walls up now in some of the houses. It's going to take a long time to finish up some of the work that they have to do, but they're getting it done pretty good. I talk to the construction people all the time. They do have some jobs available, but people have to be trained in asbestos handling and other things that they have to have some type of training in to get application with them. So we did let some people know that we knew and put it out there that positions will be open. Also with People First, the company that's going to be doing the asbestos removal and that type of stuff are looking for people too. And my agency that I work for, Workforce Investment Board, actually has a program where we'll pay for the training for asbestos removal and OSHA. So I'm putting it out there to please call Workforce Investment Board and let us know if you want to take the training, because they're going to be coming soon, and if you need a job, that's the time to come. I think that's all I got. I thought of something else, but I can't remember it right now. So
If you do remember, let me know. 6th District, Councilman Joe Beatrice.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to take a second to thank the Green Team. They've been in my area, North Utica, extensively last week and a little bit this week, picking up, coming off the thruway, the area. That's the first thing people see when they're hitting our city. Just in that area, they picked up 16 bags. They picked up all of going along River Road going toward Walmart. That's all picked up. And they picked up Seymour Field last Thursday. They cleaned the fence line, the parking lot. And I think our DPW has also been over there taking care of the fields, getting a lot of the fields edged out, because I know a couple of my colleagues here have kids playing, and I know it's very important to them. That being said, also, we talk about it all the time. We need to be, anybody listening out there, it's easy to call up and say, hey, there's garbage here, there's garbage there, I can't do this, but it starts with you. So just try to be, this time of the year is the terrible time of year, there's garbage all over, we still get windy days, and our containers are terrible. I would like to see us down the road get a concealed container, but I realize they're expensive. But just take a little pride in your property, pick your houses up in your property, and it'll be a lot better for everybody. It's not easy for me to call Marcus and say, Marcus, I need this done, or if we all take a little bit of time, we can make a better place for us. That being said, on the 24th, on Monday the 24th is our North Utica meeting. Myself and the county legislator will be there at 5:30 to 6:30. I have my own separate meeting, so if anybody wants to come and talk, has an issue or anything like that before the North Utica meeting, I'm there for that hour. And then at 6:30 we have our monthly meeting. So anybody's welcome. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I remember what it is.
All right, we're going to go back to the 5th Ward. Venice Irvin.
We do have a couple of members of the street team here. That was a group that Patrick Johnson used to head up. That used to talk to youth, mentoring them, and trying to get them to put their guns down. So they're here tonight, and I'm glad to see them. It lets me know that the mission that he had is still going on, and that they're still out on the streets all over Utica, talking to different kids, trying to
stop the violence. So I wanted to acknowledge them being here. I'm done now.
Thank you. Council at large, Samantha Colosimo Testi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm all set for tonight.
Thank you, Council at large, and President Pro Temp,
Listen, I had state testing all day today, my brain.
Nothing.
Frank DeBrango.
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. I just have something real quick. It's also in regards to the street team. I just wanted to say that over the years, I did work with Patrick Johnson through many of his meetings. He had a lot of great sessions at Youth Public Library. I know some of you have been there. So I'm glad to see you continuing that effort as well, because it does make an active difference in the community we live. And that's for our entire community, so thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, can I say one thing?
Yeah.
Some members of the street teams were also involved in a cookout in Kemble Park that was very popular at a lot of people in the park. It was a great event, but one of the fallouts from that were there's grills in Kemble Park now. There weren't before. And as of now, it might change after I say this publicly, but as of now, you don't need a permit to cook on the grills. So people have called us to ask if we need a permit to cook on the grills, and no, you can just cook out and hang out with your family and have a good time, okay?
Hey, the longer we keep those grills running and we clean up after ourselves, the longer they'll stay there and won't need a permit.
I got
then
about,
they won't need a permit.
I got
right?
about 6 calls this week for grill permits after they saw the snug team cooking out there, so.
No, it's awesome. Thank you. Another amenity. All right. We're moving on to the packet. We're going to start with proposed resolution number 2. But before we do that, there was discussion in pre-meeting conference that we're going to put multiple pieces in committee, so I figured we could call those now and move those to committee. Regarding the complement of the Bureau of Fire, unless, of course, something else is going to happen from the floor.
Not really. We'd like to motion proposed ordinance number 1. I think it was 3 and 4 that concern the fire department complement into committee, sir.
All right, so let's introduce each one by motion and move them each into committee, please.
Motion to ordinance number 1 to refer to committee for the fire department complement.
Second from multiple people. I'm going to go with Friend on that one. Any opposed to placing that in committee? It's in committee.
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance number 3 and 4 to committee.
Second from Beatrice. Any opposed? That's 3. Motion for 4. DeBrango's the motion for 4. Second from Friend. Any opposed to placing ordinance 4, also amending the composition of the Bureau of Fire in committee? Okay, those are all in committee. Resolution number 2 is Commissioner of Deeds.
Motion to move ordinance number 2, Commissioner Deeds, for Matthew Black.
Second from Friend. Your votes. Be it resolved, the Common Council does hereby approve the following person eligible for appointment to Commissioner of Deeds in and for the City of Utica within the term ending December 31st, 2024, Matthew W. Black.
8 yeas adopted.
Thank you. Proposed resolution number 5 is sponsored by Councilmember Colosimo Testa. Is there a second?
Motion to commit.
Second from Beatrice.
Are we putting in committee, Samantha?
Yes.
Motion to commit, Mr.
All
President.
right, before we put that in committee, do you want to go full council on this?
I appreciate
Or
that,
everyone
yeah.
is here? Okay, very good. Any opposed?
The only other thing that I would suggest is maybe we pass this tonight without the designation of where it would be, and then that way we can move forward with that.
That's fine.
Location, it's up to
That's
the
fine.
council.
All right, so who made the motion to commit?
Yeah, the location.
Hold on, who made the motion to
Okay,
commit?
so,
Retract, rescind motion to commit, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right, now it's on the floor for a vote. Would you like me to read this?
yeah, please.
All right. Proposed resolution number 5, memorial sign for Thomas M. Lindsay. Whereas Officer Thomas M. Lindsay, UPD, age 32 of Utica, a 5-year veteran of the Utica Police Department, made the ultimate sacrifice protecting the citizens of Utica when he passed away on Thursday, April 12th, 2007, at the St. Elizabeth Medical Center. He was killed in the line of duty. And whereas Thomas was born in Utica on October 1st, 1974, the son of Arthur Frank Sr. and Carmela Bumbalo Lindsay. Raised and educated in Utica, he graduated from Utica Senior Academy in 1992. A proud member of the United States Marine Corps, he served his duty overseas as an embassy security guard from 1993 to 1999. He then attended college, graduating from MVCC in 2001. At one time, he was married to the former Susan Drinkwater. His life's work began when he was appointed to the Utica Police Department on October 8th, 2001. A 5-year veteran police officer, he was formerly a member of the Tactical Unit and currently a member of the C Platoon. Tommy's life was defined by the love of his work. He's dedicated we have to fix some of the grammar in this. He dedicated his life to doing what he loved best, his military service and his commitment to protecting Utica. And whereas he was awarded several certificates of commendation by the Utica Police Department for the honorable service rendered in the East Utica and Cornhill areas. He was credited for the alertness, teamwork, dedication, keen powers of observation, and the ability to quickly diffuse a dangerous situation. This was the story of who he was. Similarly, in his military career, as the United States Marine Corps cited, he set new standards of professionalism and personal excellence. In his personal life, he knew the qualities it took to be a good friend, and he respected people. He had a kind heart and always honored his family and guarded their well-being. His family asks that you remember him for his dedication to serving others. Although Tommy's journey of life was short, completing tasks, thoughts, and ideas were truly meaningful to him. Confident of spirit, determined of mind, and physically fit of body, he pursued the sport of weightlifting at the Solid Gold Fitness Center, often achieving first place in competitions. He was a member of the Utica Police Association and a communicant of his family parish, St. Mary and Mount Carmel Blessed Sacrament Parish. And now be it resolved that the Common Council of the City of Utica does hereby authorize and endorse the placement of a memorial sign at the Mary S. Hendricks Police and Fire Memorial Park in honor and remembrance of Thomas M. Lindsay. While he may be gone, his life and contributions to the City of Utica will never be forgotten. Your votes.
Eight yeas adopted.
Proposed resolution number 6, calling for a public hearing on the sale of 921 Blandina Street.
Mr. President, I'd like to move the sale, calling for the public hearing on Blandina Street.
Second, from DeBrango. This is the sale of the public hearing calling for the sale of 921 Blandina Street to Hazam Mubaraz for a sum of $5,000. The public hearing will be held May 3rd, 2023 at 7 p.m. Your votes.
8 yeas adopted.
Ordinance 7.
Mr. President, I'd like to move to commit 921 Blandina Street, the sale of the property, to committee.
Second.
Any opposed? It's in committee. Next piece is sponsored by Councilmember Aiello, resolution number 8. Is there a second? Second from Miola. This is calling for a public hearing on the sale of 318.22-3-2 Whitesboro Street. It's a sum of $250 from the URA to Willie Smith. Public hearing will be held May 3rd, 2023 at 7 p.m. Your votes.
8 yeas adopted.
Okay, proposed ordinance number 9.
Mr. President, I'd like to move ordinance number 9, the sale of Whitesboro Street, the lot on Whitesboro Street, to committee.
Second.
Second from Friend. Any opposed? It's in committee. Proposed ordinance 10 is an E&A transfer for the 22-23 budget year.
Motion to move, Mr. President.
Okay, a second is motion to move.
All right, and then also, just so we're aware, the account numbers also reflect the budget year. But they are end-of-year accruals, so. This is for a sum of $23,730 going into the salaries line, $35 going into office supplies, and $182 going into postage. Your votes.
The only thing I'd like to make a motion to amend just so that it adds 2022 to 2023 in it.
Okay. Second?
Second, Mr. President, would you
Any
read
opposed to the
it?
amendment?
Would you read that into the record on the rest of them remaining?
Yes.
If you don't mind?
Will do. E&A
Thank you.
transfer for the 2022,
Absolutely, please.
23 budget year.
Thank you.
Your votes as amended.
8 yeas adopted.
Next piece is ordinance number 11, an E&A transfer for the 22-23 budget year.
Motion to move, Mr. President.
Second from Friend. This is to adjust for unexpected retirement and rehiring, heating repairs, and front door security. Multiple different lines coming from City Hall Maintenance and Facilities, going into similar cost centers in City Hall Maintenance and Facilities. Your votes.
8 yeas adopted.
Thank you. Next piece, ordinance 12, E&A transfer, 22-23 budget year.
Motion to move, Mr. President.
Thank you. This is to adjust for an increase of insurance required to cover city fleet. This is coming out of the contingency line and going into liability insurances. It's a sum of $28,132. Second from Fred. Your votes.
8 yeas adopted.
Proposed ordinance 13, E&A transfer, 22-23 year.
Motion to move, Mr. President.
Okay, Durango's the second. This is coming out of codes salaries, going into building codes salaries, codes gasoline, codes software to adjust for additional electrical inspector, gas price increases, and additional software. Your votes.
Eight yeas adopted.
Councilmember Aiello, you have a few pieces.
Mr. President, I would like to introduce ordinances 14, 15, 16, and 17 into committee.
Can we do them one at a time, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to waive the Thursday rule for all of these pieces, please.
Thank you.
Second.
Any opposed? Thursday rules waived. If you'd like to.
Okay, I would like to introduce ordinance 14 into committee. Make a motion.
Second, Mr. President.
Second from Miola.
I
Any
make
opposed? Ordinance adding a new traffic schedule is in committee.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to introduce ordinance 15 into committee.
Second, Mr. President.
Uh,
I just want to say I'm opposed.
Yeah, when I call any opposed. All right, yeah, thank you. So there was one opposed to that. But that's fine. Ordinance 15 is an ordinance amending lane designations. Second from Miola. Any opposed to placing this in committee? All right, one opposed. Thank you. Ordinance 16.
I'd like to make a motion to introduce ordinance 16 into committee.
Second, Mr. President.
Okay. Any opposed? One opposed. Thank you. In committee.
And I'd like to make a motion to introduce ordinance 17 into committee.
Second, Mr. President.
Second from Miola. Any opposed? One opposed. In committee. This is a different piece, sponsored by Williamson, Colosimo Testa, DeBrango, and Beatrice. A resolution withdrawing permission to conduct a trial program as set forth in a resolution adopted October 19th, 2022. Proposed resolution number 18. Who will be sponsoring this for the floor?
Refer to committee, we have to waive the Thursday rule.
Okay, so let's waive the Thursday rule first for this piece.
I thought we did it for all the pieces.
Did you do it for all of them?
For everything following.
Okay, you did everything following? I thought it was just for the,
Everything
all right, perfect. All right. Is there a second to introduce this?
Second.
Okay. Motion was to introduce and place in committee. Any opposed? You're opposed to this one? Okay, one opposed, but it's in committee. All right, we have one additional piece, and then I believe I do have to call from the floor because there's things on committee.
Could you please read that additional piece into the record, Mr. President?
All right, so proposed ordinance 19 is sponsored by Councilmember Miola. Do we have a second? All right. Second is Colosimo Testa. This is an ordinance amending section 2-23-101 of the Utica City Code of Ordinances. This would require unanimous approval from the body in attendance. Be it ordained that section 2-23-101B of the Code of Ordinances is hereby amended to read as follows. A, the city engineer is hereby authorized and directed to administer a sidewalk rebate program to the owners of properties abutting a public street. Residential properties improved by a structure with 5 apartments or less shall be reimbursed as provided below without limitation. For the owners of all other properties, the amount of reimbursement shall be limited to $2,000, changed from $1,000 in this ordinance, per street upon which such property or any adjacent lots in common ownership and used for common purpose are located. Further ordained that this ordinance shall take effect immediately. Your votes.
8 yeas adopted.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I
Yep.
would like to make a motion to pull just not sure whether this is proposed ordinance number 11 or number 18. It was first introduced, 18. Proposed ordinance number 18, please, Mr. President.
It was introduced on 4/5/2023?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The motion to adjourn did not receive a second, and I did give the floor to Councilperson Friend. So unless someone wants to second the motion to adjourn
I
as a
don't.
preceding motion? Okay. Is there a second to pull the proposed ordinance 18 introduced
Second.
on 4/5/2023?
Thank you.
We have a second. Any opposed to pulling that from committee?
The only question I had, I thought that Councilman Beatrice didn't ask for my clearance in being here, so I would be opposed to pulling it out of committee.
All right, so one opposed pulling from committee. Please state the
I'm opposed to pulling
intended
from committee
reason.
also. I
Two.
didn't realize that's what this
Okay,
was.
so two opposed.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else?
So-
Pulling it from committee.
Right.
Right. So 1, 2, 3,
So
4,
I'd
5,
like the
6.
floor when you.
All right, so 6 yays. It's on the floor. Thank you.
So I am sorry that Mr. Williamson is not here tonight. I know that he has been a very long-term advocate of trees in the city, both sort of here in council, but also in work that he's done in the parks, and work that he has done with bringing young people into the parks to appreciate them. I'm grateful for his long-term commitment to trees, but I would like to move this forward. This is the time of year when we need to sort of have this available to Mr. Short, who has been asking us, making it very clear that this is good for the city and good for him and will help Mr. Short in his work. So I can't say much more than what Ms. Pierce already said about the importance of becoming a Tree City USA, all of the many ways in which this will benefit us. And there are a number of requirements to be a Tree City USA, including a tree ordinance, including a tree board. Those are two of the things that we have to do as a council in order to be eligible to apply for and be designated as a Tree City USA. So I'm ready to bring this forward and bring it to the floor for a vote, please.
Can I qualify my
Yes,
vote?
but I just
And
would
you
like
gotta
to
clear
state-
the board too
I-
also.
Clear the board, but I'd like to state that this is on the floor for a vote, and the vote is now called. If people would like to vote and then qualify before we call the vote, greatly appreciate it.
Yeah,
So you're-
can I qualify before I vote?
Well, yeah, before we call the vote, you'll be able to
Okay.
qualify, so yes. Now, before we do that, I do want to read portions of this into the record. Rescinding and replacing Article 2 of Chapter 217 of the City of Utica Code of Ordinances. Be it ordained that the Common Council of the City of Utica does hereby rescind Article 2, Trees, of Chapter 217 of the City of Utica Code of Ordinances and replace it with the following. There's many strike-throughs as we've gone over in committee and in pre-meeting conference prior. And what is introduced is Article 2, Trees and Shrubs. Multiple sections designating the purpose and intent, the word usage and definitions, as well as the definition of the Tree Advisory Board, etc. It also designates the authority and jurisdiction of the city arborist. I think that's enough. Yeah, your votes.
I do just want to clarify one thing. It says that this was introduced on 4/5. I actually introduced the original piece of legislation upon which this was based. I want to say back in January,
Mhm.
and then we made enough changes and we wanted to fold in the rescind and repeal, that we sort of rewrote it to the extent to which it made sense to simply introduce a new ordinance. So it looks like we turned this around in 2 weeks, but it's actually been several months in the making, and we've had committee meetings about it, et cetera.
As the record of the council shows.
Mr. Giorgio has been very helpful, was very helpful in crafting some of the language in order to make it a good ordinance.
Okay.
Mr. President, I do have a couple of questions. I didn't know that we were voting on this tonight.
No, we weren't going.
No, I thought that you asked that
Right.
it be held in committee. So a couple of things that I do have. So this states that the all members of the board shall be residents of the city except in the case where the arborist deems an exemption useful to obtaining more expertise of the board. The board does not have that determination to make, whether or not that they waive a paid position inside the city. So that has to be clarified. The Common Council is actually the only one that could give a waiver for the city arborist, knowing that it'll be a paid position inside the city. The other thing is that I had a couple of questions on was, is there a position inside the city code that also introduces a city arborist? That is a position that will be made.
The arborist question was answered. I just, for the record.
No, right, but there should be a
Yeah.
position
And
inside the
it's
city
going
code
to
that
be
adds
the
a city
DPW
arborist.
commissioner at this time.
So that's who it's gonna be. So
Yeah.
what happens if it's not going to be the DPW
I'm
commissioner?
just stating what was already explained when this was discussed prior. That
Right,
was
so then
stated.
so then it needs to be in there that the exemption of a paid city arborist will be the DPW commissioner and Parks commissioner. And also, if you are,
Residency
if,
is not about the city arborist, the residency is about the
it
board
says it,
members.
it says it right here, it says it, right there.
All members of the board.
It says all members of the board shall be residents except where in the case the city arborist deems an exemption useful to obtaining more expertise on the board. So the city arborist, I mean, say it's not Dave Short, say they hire somebody else. It's gotta be clarified in there
It
that,
does say, except where the arborist gains an exemption, which would be
right, but
subject
technically it
to
reads,
council
but technically it reads
in
as the
city
board.
code.
Correct, Mr. President.
But it says there, as the board. Who appoints the city arborist?
We've discussed all.
Right,
this.
no,
We've
I mean, but it
gone
wasn't
over
clarified.
This is a
The
valid
city-
question.
right.
Within the
I
context
mean-
of the legislation, the question
You
is
didn't
who
get
appoints the city arborist.
I did not get anything in writing.
By pursuant to the ordinance, it's the director of public works pursuant.
George, the ordinance, as I read it, and you can correct me if you will, in 2:17:29, says the director of public works shall by virtue of their office be the city arborist, or have the authority to designate an agent as the. Now, if he has the authority to designate someone to be the city arborist, that is taking the power of the mayor to make appointments away from the mayor. And that troubles me a great deal, because whenever you reduce the power of an elected official, like the mayor of the city of Utica, that requires a referendum. I think that the choice should be, if you're gonna do this, and you're not gonna spend a lot of money, that you should designate that the city arborist is the Commissioner of Public Works. And then you have no problem, because that the Commissioner of Public Works is appointed by the mayor. And so there's no question who the arborist is, because he's done pursuant to the statutes. I don't think you can have, because the arborist has powers, I have a lot of trouble with section 2:17:29, because the common council should not infringe upon the powers of the executive branch. And we're infringing on the powers of the executive branch when we allow someone else to be the city arborist other than him.
Judge Garamond?
Yes.
Would it satisfy this objection if I amended 2:17:29 to simply read the director of public works shall, by virtue of their office, be the city arborist?
That's what he suggested, yes.
Yep.
That's the way that I would
Okay.
do it.
So, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to amend 2:17:29 to read, the director of public works shall, by virtue of their office, be the city arborist.
Second.
I
Full
think we
stop.
call it the commissioner, don't we?
Who's the second?
Excuse me, don't we describe him as the commissioner?
It is the commissioner.
Well, we use the word commissioner. Usually
Okay.
we use the word
I'm
commissioner.
gonna-
We don't have a director, we
Okay.
have a commissioner.
The commissioner of public works shall, by virtue of their office, be the city arborist, period. Second.
Second from Aiello. Any opposed to amending the legislation that's on the floor?
The only other thing that I would suggest then
Hold
too.
on, that's not what I was asking.
Okay, go ahead.
Any opposed?
I wasn't opposed.
All right, we're good, we're moving on.
The
All
other
right,
thing is,
amended.
so it also says issuance of permits, said city arborist. I mean, it's not, it's, I guess the language needs to read, if it's not the Commissioner of Public Works. Not every Commissioner of Public Works is gonna be as knowledgeable as a city arborist. So I think that that just has to be clarified, that say Dave Short is no longer the Commissioner of Public Works, or excuse me, yeah, right, DPW, whatever his title may be, that he might not be there in December 31st of 2023. So, I mean, just a couple of these things just need to be clarified. And also, the other clarification is, if this is not a paid position, then it needs to be clarified that it's not a paid position, the city arborist.
If there's no motion, this is on the floor for a vote.
Well,
Okay.
I'd like to call for a vote.
I guess, okay, so then it just needs to be clarified, because I won't vote for the piece of legislation. Not that it makes a difference of whether or not I'm voting for it.
That's perfectly okay.
Okay, so can that be
The council has
just-
brought this to the floor for a vote.
Sure.
I'm just the chair, I'm
Sure.
just driving the meeting here.
And I was
Um,
still in a question before they brought it to a
That's
vote.
fine.
So can somebody answer that question for me?
If no one has an answer to the question, which I personally do not, and this is on the floor for a vote.
Okay.
We are gonna move on.
All right, then I have one more question and I'll qualify my vote.
Okay.
Who is, says any person responsible for violating any terms of this chapter shall pay a fine not to exceed $100. Who is going to be the one imposing those fines?
Codes.
Yeah,
Which
so,
section,
so
the
the,
judge can refer to it.
so it's the codes department, we'll take them, they'll go to city court, and the judge will rule in effect.
Okay, so where does it say that the codes department will
The
be?
codes
Well,
department
the codes
does-
enforces all city codes.
Right, that's what I was gonna state.
Right, so, okay, so they, if somebody,
City.
if somebody was in violation of it, they would be affecting what section of the chapter? All of it?
Well, it's, so,
Well,
So where, what section would they be violating, I guess, so
well,
to
if they
speak?
cut down trees that are prohibited, or do anything for section, basically, they're in
anything that's prohibited that they violate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty, it's fairly clear.
Where?
If you read the actual article.
Well, I did, but I've
Well-
been through it a couple of times and I haven't seen
So I can
it.
tell you 21733, 21735, 21736, 21737, 21738, 21739.
Okay, perfect, I got that. So where is the schedule? So it says not to exceed a fine of $100. So where is the penalty for each of the violations? So they can just go ahead and say, hey, this tree's $75, this tree's $100?
No, we give the ticket and the judge imposes the sentence. They're just setting the maximum threshold on the sentence.
So you're just gonna give them a violation and they're the ones.
And
that are gonna
they
spend
go to
$100?
city court.
Okay.
So, just to lighten the mood a little, technically the way this is written, even if someone were to make an appointment that was incorrect, they would also be subject to that fine. So
Right.
let's.
Correct. Right.
That's
Which
how
is-
most
Yes,
ordinances are
exactly,
written.
exactly. So, if you don't have any other questions, even though, it seems much to your chagrin, we're moving on. Your votes? Yes, you may qualify. Before we call the vote, before you pull the lever. Okay.
As much as I'm in favor of this legislation, I talked in our pre-meeting, and said my piece, and nobody said we were bringing this out tonight. My colleague, Councilman Williamson, has been on the council, I believe, 11 years. This has been his project from day one. He got shot down continuously, okay? Even when Mr. Short was here at our meeting, he couldn't give him concrete answers. And I only think it was fair and proper for this council to give Councilman Williamson the respect of being here when this was passed. So as much as I'm for this, I'm going to be voting no on it tonight. Thank you.
Your votes, call it.
Wait, 6 is not, I didn't vote, I hit no, maybe, I hit no.
Clear the board,
Clear
vote
the
again,
board.
sorry.
I think I hit yes when I put my
A lot of
speaker
levers
on.
going on here. Burmaster, there we go.
Thank you.
5 yeas adopted.
Okay.
Mr. President, may I have the floor when you?
The floor?
Yes.
You may have the floor.
I just want to add something here with Genesee Street, obviously. I think what we can all agree on is the faded lines is not safe. We have to repaint. They're fading because it was a trial, truly, so the temporary paint was water-based, but we must repaint them as soon as possible. This urgent request is also coming from engineering department. Obviously, we put legislation into committee tonight for the ordinances of the complete streets. Tonight we talked about, we had CNS Engineering here explaining that the streets are good for the growth of the city too with these 3 lanes. We had New York State DOT in here saying that 3 lanes is safer than 4. We have we didn't get to the survey results of the analysis of it all, but even these slightly in favor. I'm not going to say a lot, but based on opinions too, that is also there. The feedback was truly valuable from it though, no matter what. And we did have a 100% completion rate, which is unheard of. So over 1,000 people did take the survey. And there was a lot of public input based on that. So from that, with the ordinances, the big concerns was better signage, which is obviously what we need. Delivery zones actually marked, bike lanes marked. We need to vote on this. We need to paint the lines. We've talked about this for 6 months. I don't know if anybody's opinion would change after that, but the experts have spoken. I'd like to call for a special meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock so engineering can get to painting.
I'd like to second that motion, please, Mr. President.
A special meeting at 2 o'clock tomorrow?
Yes.
First of all, you can't call a meeting.
Well, so hold on. In the rules of order that you've adopted for this council, you do need 72 hours to call a special meeting. In your rules of order that you adopted.
Can we meet until Tuesday?
With safety.
A special meeting?
Special meeting?
Or
That's-
just a meeting?
Just a special meeting.
Judge, could 5 council members call a special meeting tomorrow?
Well, it would still have to be 24-hour notice.
Yes.
Even if it was
I
called
think
within the
it's
city
24
charter, the
hours.
mayor and the common
Yeah,
council can call a
8:30
special
PM?
meeting. So,
So whenever you wanna.
you'd have to
have
meet at
24 hours.
8:10 tomorrow.
What day?
Or you can have it the next day.
Mark's gonna be back?
I'm set. What day?
Yeah.
We can do Friday.
Friday?
Friday? Friday at 2.
Yep.
That's what I'm calling for.
And technically, you have to have a committee meeting before you have a special meeting, because you didn't introduce the actual legislation. to the
Yes, they did.
Well, you
Yes,
did
we
introduce
did.
it to the committee, but he hasn't.
No, it was on the floor.
Right.
It all hits
Yeah,
the
I'd
floor
like to
first.
call a meeting for 2 o'clock Friday.
Discuss it.
What,
Before you
let me
roll it out.
They don't technically have to have a committee
We
meeting.
can do that,
The way
yeah.
you should properly.
The majority of the council can do what the majority wishes.
She's calling for a meeting.
I'm the
Is there a
chair.
second?
I seconded it.
Okay, so there's a second. Please put the votes on the board for this special meeting.
Friday?
So time out, is it a special meeting or is it a committee meeting?
It's a special meeting.
Special meeting of the council.
Okay,
That's
so
what the
first-
motion was. I'm calling, no.
Excuse me, point of order, Council President.
What time is this meeting?
Councilman Beatrice, first of all, is there an urgency behind this legislation to call an emergency special meeting for tomorrow?
First off, that technically, if there's 5 members calling a special meeting, especially on the floor of the council, and it's not outside the context of an actual active meeting, they can call a special meeting.
Even though without 24-hour notice, or 72-hour notice according to the
Well,
rules?
this is the notice. They just said the meeting will be Friday.
Right,
at
but
2
according
o'clock.
to their rules of order,
Let me ask you
This-
something, 2 o'clock, we got people to
Just
work.
please
Time
vote
out.
on
Let
this.
Judge Garamone
This is
explain.
a valid motion.
Just the rules of order are made so that every person who is involved, which is the members of the common council, are fully notified of a special meeting, and there are rules about time. If you call a special meeting at a meeting where the people are present, that's okay. My problem is that you have to do 2 things. If you want to call a special meeting, you're talking about tomorrow,
No,
Friday.
Friday.
at 2.
Friday?
Yeah, Friday, 2 o'clock.
There's no problem. Just-
Right, that's what I'm saying you
This
vote
is
on.
coming
Yeah, just
from,
vote on it.
Time out.
You can call a special meeting till
Why-
5:03 with
why
no
2
problem.
o'clock?
Because you don't violate
Don't
any
you
rules
work?
then. Okay.
I can have somebody else watch my students. Absolutely
Okay.
not, I can't be here at 2 o'clock.
Right? Why at 2 o'clock? When Mark and Samantha both are teachers and can't be here.
It's a valid concern.
sure.
If the majority would like to consider the fact that there are teachers
I
on the
gotta be
council.
honest with you, if you have 5 votes, just don't waste anybody's time and pull it out tonight for a vote, because I'll do that.
They can't. It was just introduced tonight. It would have to be unanimous. Okay.
Yeah.
Your vote's on the special meeting.
So wait, 2 o'clock?
Yes, that is what they're saying. All right, vote on it.
Like it's-
Somebody gonna notify Councilman Williamson?
I'll talk.
Of course.
Of course.
Why don't we call him now?
No, the notice has to go out. Now,
They've got
he,
5 votes.
Councilman Williamson is not a member of this active meeting.
3, 4,
Nowhere to
5.
go.
So then call for a vote for a special meeting on Friday.
And the main goal was also to
Call
make sure.
for the vote. Councilman Williamson's not a part of this meeting, so we cannot consider his vote right now. He was not here, so vote. There's 8 people on the floor. Vote, please. Okay.
Oh, I voted no.
I want no.
What's going on?
She's against it, and she's voting for it.
Oh, I'm sorry, you've never done that before, Frank?
Never.
Switch my vote to no.
All right, one vote to no.
Roll call vote, because the lights are,
Calling
Oh, yeah.
Mr. President, there's a special
Councilman
meeting
DeBrango,
Friday
how'd you
at
vote?
I didn't hit the button here Tuesday.
All right, clear the board. Clear the board. Everyone vote.
We're gonna have a special meeting 2 o'clock
Friday.
That's what was called. Yes.
I'm not, I gotta be here, so I'll be here.
Good.
So, everyone's in. Call the vote. All right, the special meeting is then.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, please,
Yep.
Mr.
Second,
President.
Mr. President.
Sure sounds like they're gonna
Friday too?
make the trial permanent.